important webinar. Diamonds indeed are forever. And I'm hoping to tell you how you can continue to shine in the health space. So I'll just like to share my screen. Please confirm that you can see it. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so just talking about health, and health is wealth. This is a financial webinar, but as I'm sure everyone has realized, it is not possible to have wealth, true wealth, without health. Black women look good, and I must say this any day, any time. And you can see a whole selection of Black women there, and I'm sure all the women on our webinar are looking as good, if not better. But external appearances can actually be deceptive. We have a lot of illnesses, we have a lot of challenges, and they don't always show on the outside until it's too late. Our life expectancy in Nigeria, unfortunately, is far below what it should be. As a developing country, it's quite low. And as opposed to those in developed countries who have very high life expectancies. And we have a number of diseases associated with aging. But focusing on health as a foundation of wealth, there's an old adage which says the greatest wealth is health. And as you can see, they're actually very similar words, just replacing the H with the W. And I mean, I don't want to go into the detail of it. It's all written down there for you to see. But it is clear that without wealth, without health, you cannot have long-standing health. Or rather, if without health, you cannot have long-standing wealth. Your wealth can be consumed by illness. And it's important that we realize that actually having good health can actually be considered a beneficial saving scheme, because the money that would have been utilized in the treatment of diseases and its expenses can actually be saved by being healthy. And if there's one thing COVID has shown us, is that we cannot take anything for granted. A lot of people thought that, oh, no problem. Whenever I'm ill, I could just hop on the plane and go abroad and have my things taken care of. But COVID showed that actually, no, it's not always possible to do that. Sometimes you're trapped here and you have no choice but to use what we have here. And that in itself is also a challenge. Now, before I go into all the illnesses that actually I want to talk about that affect people in their 50s and above, I do want to, it would be amiss of me not to talk about COVID, because right now it is very, very high on the agenda. Older people have been shown to be more at risk of COVID. So therefore, we in our 50s and 60s are more at risk. The older you are, the more at risk you are. The more you have coexisting conditions, the more at risk you are. So you may say, what about it? For those who are not aware, the second wave is here in Nigeria. This graph actually shows that as a day before yesterday, we hit a high of 550 new cases. We had been hovering around 100 cases a day, but we've shot up. Why is that? And I can only show this dancing group. Parties have returned, funerals have returned, Nigerians are not wearing masks, people are coming back from abroad, they're not taking precautions, and going straight into funerals instead of following the guidelines as laid out by the government to self-isolate. So we are actually getting into a lot of trouble. So I would like to just advise that everyone on this call takes care. Everyone should take special care. We have to follow the advice of sanitization, wearing your masks, and social distancing. And it is something that, even though a lot of people are not very keen on the vaccines, I would advise the people in the older age groups think about it seriously when it comes out, especially those with diabetes and other concomitant conditions, because it is important. Now, most people in the 50s and 60s who have experienced menopause. And why is that important? Because menopause is a major, major change in a woman's health. The very important estrogen that we carry throughout our life disappears or reduces. And that comes with a lot of consequences. And a lot of the protective effects that estrogen has for us, we lose. So it's important we know some of the conditions. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's not possible to, go through everything in detail, but I will just touch on the important things that you need to know about. And osteoporosis is one of them. And it's important you know about osteoporosis and look at how to protect your bones. Interestingly, a lot of people, and this is something some people may need to know about, is that if you have other conditions and hypo and hyperthyroidism, that means this derangement of your thyroid function, which is a simple thyroid function test, can actually affect your menopause badly. So you have some people who go through menopause with just a few hot flushes. There's some people who are really incapacitated by it. And it has been shown that actually it may not just be your menopause, it may also be your thyroid. So if you're a person who is affected by this or know somebody who is affected badly by it, it's something you need to look at, you need to check and have checked out. Diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. Diabetes and hypertension are common in our country. They're common in Black people, and they also worsen with age. And a lot of people don't know about it. And so if there's anything that, I also want to celebrate all of you on this call who do your checks on an annual basis. Those who do your health checks, really, I celebrate you. And those who do not do health checks on a regular basis, don't worry. It is not too late to start. Now is a good time as any to start doing your health checks, because knowing what you have and understanding what you have is very important. So, for example, people who know they're diabetic and have good diabetic control are fare far better when COVID comes around than those who don't and those whose diabetes are out of control. Those people with hypertension and obesity also have challenges. Coronary heart disease is also a major issue. So what I'd like to say is that all of these conditions constitute a problem. They constitute a huge medical problem for you because of the complications of cardiovascular disease and other things that can happen. But if you add COVID into the mix, it then becomes very, very deadly if those conditions are not properly maintained and are not properly managed. Now, going quickly into an area where I do want to spend a little time, it's about cancer. Cancer is something that occurs a lot and is a lot worse in women with increasing age. But unfortunately, many people don't recognize the signs until it is too late. Cancer of the breast is the most common cancer in women. 1 in 8 women get it in their lifetime. And if you think of how many people are already on this call, I don't need you to do you can do the maths and know that a number of people will get it. But the good thing to know is that cancer of the breast is not the killer it used to be. Nowadays, they're actually speaking about cure for cancer. And so the important thing is to get it as quickly or to detect it as quickly as you can. Things like cancer of the cervix. Again, I want to celebrate women who've been doing their pap smears, who've been doing their mammograms. But for those who haven't, I want them to really start to do them. It's never too late to start to have your health checks, to pick up things early, because when you pick things up early, you can actually have it treated properly. There are certain things that people don't think about, and this is one of the things that unfortunately keeps happening, and I want to put it across so that it doesn't happen again, and that is bleeding. When you have menopause, your period stops. When your period stops, it has stopped. It does not come back again. Any bleeding you find after you have had your menopause is danger. I would say any bleeding of any kind is dangerous and should never be ignored. We have too many women who have the bleeding come again, say, oh, it's my period has started again, ignore it, and end up with cancer of the endometrium that has far advanced, and there's nothing that, you know, can be done, or nothing much can be done about it when it's detected. Even if you have piles before and all of a sudden you experience bleeding, that bleeding must be checked out. Every form of bleeding that is, you know, should never be ignored. I think I just want to emphasize and re-emphasize this, because it's one of the key signs of cancer occurring that is easy to pick up, but a lot of women, or a lot of people, I would say, ignore. So I'd like to spend a little time on cancer screening, because it's important that you understand that cancer, breast cancer, for example, mammograms are easy to access and easy to get, and you can get them and do them manually. Colonoscopies and things like FIT, which is a simple stool test, can also be done. Here in Nigeria, you don't even have to go anywhere to have it done. Now, I had wanted to write liquid-based cytology, which is a form of a pap smear for cervical cancer. That is also easy to access. But also important things like doing tumor markers. Ovarian cancer is not so easy to pick up, but if you do your tumor markers and you do things like your scans, particularly abdominal scans, some of these things can be picked up. For those who have breast cancer in their family, it is important that you also go on to do things like genetic markers, because it is important to note that unfortunately, women, a lot of younger women, unfortunately, it's what is happening is a lot of younger women are coming up with a lot more aggressive breast cancer. And a number of them are also familial in nature. So if it's something that you know is in the family, these markers and so on are available, and you should have them done. Talking about markers, if you do have a breast cancer or you have a lump of any kind, and they tell you, have it checked, have them do the markers. Understand that these markers need to be tested for, because when they test for the markers, they can treat you appropriately. And that is why a lot of people are now recovering fully from cancer. And people even in remission, when they come out of remission and they have a recurrence, there's what is called a liquid biopsy, where they can check markers again and give appropriate treatment. So just do know that proper treatment is available for cancer. And so cancer is not the death sentence that it used to be. So don't be afraid of it. If anything is wrong, seek help, seek treatment quickly. Don't just pray about it and seek help at the same time, not just one of the two. And also to mention that pharmacogenetics is very important as well. It's a very important tool that can be used in actually helping you know what drugs are good for you and what drugs you respond to, so that you don't have issues. Mental health is very important as well, particularly as you get older. From depression to dementia, I wrote here, from COVID to lockdown, NSARS and insecurity, there's been a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. And it's something that we shouldn't be shy of, and we shouldn't be afraid to acknowledge and to seek help about. I think if there's one thing or two things that I'd like us to take away from my talk, it is that prevention is better than cure. There are a lot of preventive measures like proper exercise, good sleep, eating a proper diet, having routine checkups. And as I said, it's never too late to start doing your checkups. But also, if you can, just focus on having a very positive spiritual and mental mindset. Do not, as I said, do not be afraid to seek help. Seek for help rather than later. And you'll find that things might not be as bad as you think they are. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so very much, Dr. Pamela Ajayi. That was short and to the point. Thank you. I have taken a lot away, and I'm sure so have the online audience. I expect that we have a couple of questions, but if you'll permit me, I'll start with one. Thank you for that reminder as well about the need to be extra careful even now because of the second wave. The pandemic is still very much with us, so much as some people choose to believe otherwise. And it's great advice that we're not out of the woods yet, and we truly have to be careful. Thank you so very much. That's something that's been a pain point for me, and I'm glad you've reminded us all about how important it is. I've got a question, and you've talked about ensuring that we do the checkups early, ensure that we do our annual pap smears and all that's required. And this is from a place of pain, if I might be open enough to say that. I lost a friend just in August, and she was 51. You mentioned that younger women, unfortunately are getting hit by these conditions more than ever before. She lived in Ontario in Canada and had done, all the checkups every year. She was very particular about her health. The morning they started and she had to be taken by ambulance to the hospital, she had gone out jogging that morning. So she does everything, ticks all the boxes, eats right, exercises, had done all the checkups. And then the doctor says it's a rare and aggressive form of pancreatic cancer. And we were all thrown, into a loop, and we thought, seriously? And in less than 35 days from when the very first she heard of this, came to her, she was gone. And it threw us all for a loop, and we're like, seriously? How then can you win? How come, despite all the checkups, despite the exercise, the eating right, and how come this still happened? Rare form of aggressive pancreatic cancer comes out of nowhere. So my question really is, can you win? Is there something else other than the things that you've talked about that would help us win this battle?
Well, if I may say that I don't want to put too much of dampener on it, but we are all winners. Now, unfortunately, that particular person had that aggressive form of pancreatic cancer. In fact, I lost a cousin recently as well, who's actually a medical doctor. And she too, she had a very rare, unfortunately rare endocrine tumor. And we lost her, she was 56. She was actually a GP in the UK. But that is, unfortunately, that's actually the exception rather than the rule. A lot of conditions can be tackled. And that's where the way we need to look at it and say, if we do everything that we need to do, we at least increase our chances of hitting that over 70 mark that we are all aspiring to hit. But obviously we have no guarantees in what happens, but we can only do the best that we can do. So I would say that if you do focus on doing everything right, then hopefully everything will be right. And if you look at all your friends who are out there, that may just be one out of maybe, I don't know, 50, 100 that are out there that are doing fine. So it is unfortunate, but I wouldn't dwell on it too much, but just focus on doing the simple things. Eat right and exercise regularly, keep a positive mindset, and work and tackle everything as soon as it comes in, and you'll be fine.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Ajayi. That's comforting to know that was probably the exception rather than the rule. And my condolences on the loss of your cousin as well. We've got a couple of questions come through now. I've got Yemisi Akindele who's asking, Dr. Pamela, is it advisable to have a hysterectomy if suffering from aggressive fibroids?
I think certainly. I think I think these things are, as I said, they would need to be assessed on a person by person basis, and you sit down with your gynecologist. But if you are having debilitating symptoms from really large fibroids, etc., then certainly I think it would be advisable to have it done. So you would need to have that assessed with your gynecologist.
Okay, thank you for that. Two other questions. Is the low-carb diet beneficial in preventing cancer? Nelly is asking. And Angela Digboyega wants to know, what tumor markers do you begin with? Would you be kind enough to steer us right?
Well, I think The first question is low carb diets. Now, I don't specifically like to recommend any kind of fad diet, and the low carb diet is a fad diet. I think if you just eat healthily, but making sure you have a lot of vegetables, a lot of greens, a lot of, the right kinds of food, eating in moderation, managing your weight, and exercising regularly. I think it's the whole picture. Stopping smoking. There's no point in having a low carb diet when you're smoking 20 packs a day. And, so it's a holistic picture. So it's not just one item that works. What it is how does everything come together for the individual?
Okay. Thank you so very much. So my other question, while we take some more from the audience, we have time for a few more. In terms of diet, right? You've said and I guess mine is really about timing, or the question more around what works best for you. I guess you'll have to then talk to a doctor if I hear you. But there's some diets that are not just the fad, but supposedly are working pretty well. Keto was the rave at some point in time. Now it's intermittent fasting. A sister of mine got on keto and one day just fell and fainted flat out in front of everyone because she had been on that diet. I then started the intermittent fasting recently, which I'm raving about and says it works. But then I spoke to someone recently who said, oh, no, don't do the intermittent fasting. That isn't working. What is your view? Mabel is asking the same question I'm asking as well. What is your view on intermittent fasting? Should we or shouldn't we?
You see, I think everything also, as I said, it depends on the individual. Okay. Now, if, for example, you're a person who has ulcers or so on in your family, then of course you should not go anywhere near intermittent fasting. Yeah. But if you are going to try it, then you have to make sure you try it carefully. You don't just go for 24 hours fasting, or there's ways in which you can start it and carry it on. But most people, I will tell you, would not advise fad diets. They would advise just reduction in quantity and eating the right foods. If you do want to go on a diet that is universally found to be very good for everything, then you can become a vegan. Vegetarian or vegan diets, those ones have, those ones have actually been shown to actually improve one's health quite dramatically, cutting out meat. And that's where the whole thing of cutting out red meat is not good for you. And that's where the issues of how do you, you're on keto, you're eating so much red meat, low carb diets, you're eating so much red meat. And so the issue is, what are you eating? It's not just the way you eat, but what are you eating, and your whole picture, as I mentioned before, in terms of exercise, in terms of your mindset and your stress levels, how you're managing everything matters. There's no point in eating right and exercising right and you're stressing yourself out and you're working so hard, because all of those things actually also have a negative effect on your body. Your mind has a negative effect on your body. A lot of times we don't think about our mind and how much our mind works with our body, but it's very, very important. So everything matters.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Dr. Pamela Ajayi. That was most educated. You are what you eat. You must manage your stress levels. You must exercise and then have these checkups, amongst other things. There are a couple of questions that we've run out of time to take. May I crave your indulgence to please assist us in paying attention to the chat box and just respond to a couple of questions. Ose wants to know, what role does stress from everyday lifestyle have to play? Somebody else wants to know, does SYNLAB in particular have a package for women to have this test done annually? If you will be kind enough to just respond to our online audience in the chat box, we truly will be much obliged. Okay, thank you so very much. Ladies and the gentlemen on the session, on this webinar, please give Mrs. Pamela Ajayi a round of applause for such an educative session. Thank you so very much, Doctor. Truly appreciate you being with us. And if we've got a couple of other questions, we trust that she'll still be with us for the entire evening. We will hope to be able to take that later on. Thank you, Dr. Pamela. Yes, Thank you, Mrs. Shala Wuru. I see the hand claps for Dr. Pamela. Thank you so very much. We're moving right on. And for those who joined us late in the program, we had mentioned that we've got a packed and a wonderful agenda that promises to be really informative and value adding for every one of you. Thank you for making the time to be a part of this evening. Nimi is the convener, for lack of a better word. I should have thought of something better than that, but I like the sound of convener. She's the convener of Money Matters with Nimi, and she's the one who has so graciously brought us this amazing special edition of Money Matters with Nimi. Today is Diamonds Are Forever, initially tagged to be a ladies' webinar, but we've got brave and courageous gentlemen in the room with us, and a warm welcome. Please give a warm round of applause to the gentlemen who are here with us this evening. Can I see some hand claps? So some claps for them in the chat box. Please welcome the men in the room. They also want to learn why diamonds are forever and what exactly it means. For the benefit of those of you who do not know Nimi, I don't know anyone who doesn't know Nimi, who is concerned or interested in personal finance and in wealth management, who does not know Nimi. Thank you, Ose. I see those hand claps for the gentlemen. Thank you, Adenike. Nimi is the convener I started to say earlier on. She's a personal finance and wealth management expert who transitioned from a banking career in the corporate world to pursue her entrepreneurial dreams. She's the founder and CEO of Bestman Games Limited, the African distributor of customized editions of Monopoly, Hasbro's world famous game. The City of Lagos edition of Monopoly was launched in December 2012 and was the first ever African city edition of Monopoly. We have a lot of ladies who are first on today's program. Prior to this, Nimi had enjoyed a successful banking career spanning 23 years, first at Stanbic IBTC Bank, where she rose to the position of general manager and was head private banking, and also a director of Stanbic IBTC Asset Management Limited. Subsequently, she joined Barclays Bank PLC as regional director for West Africa for their wealth and investment management division, and was also chief country officer for Nigeria as a whole. She holds a bachelor's degree from the London School of Economics, LSE, and an MBA from Lagos Business School. She also formalized her interest in music by obtaining a piano teaching diploma from the Royal College of Music, London. She sits on many boards, banks, Nigeria Exchange Group, Tara International, the Playpen, and I could go on and on. It's a very long list. She's a member of the Artists Committee of the Musical Society of Nigeria Museum and the Institute of Directors. She's also an assistant organist at Our Saviour's Church, TBS. It's a joy to hear Nimi play the piano every time. And if you haven't had that experience yet, Nimi will tell us at the end of today how we can see some of her videos or some clips of her playing with such dexterity and such great finesse. It's such a joy to watch. In her spare time, Nimi is a keen gardener. She loves boating, she loves writing, and she loves traveling, and of course, her eternal love, the piano. Ladies and gentlemen, the founder of Money Matters with Nimi and the visionary behind today's Diamonds Are Forever session. Please welcome Mrs. Okunimi Akinkugbe. Could we see the applause for Nimi as well? And a warm welcome, not just for putting this together, but for inviting all of us to be a part of it and to learn. Yes, thank you, Ms. D. Can we see more before she comes on? Thank you so very much. Keep the claps coming. Very well deserved. Absolutely. Welcome, Nimi. Good evening. You look lovely as usual.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Binta. And thank you for doing this
together. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you from everyone on the call. And I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say, this is fantastic. I'm excited because I've seen the agenda. They might not have seen it, but they don't know what's coming, and they're going to be pleasantly surprised and definitely educated by the end of today. Before I leave you to share with us, and just, I assume you have some slides you'd like to share and just talk from the heart as you're led to. I was just wondering, Nini, why this webinar? What made you think of a webinar like this at a time like this? Diamonds are forever, 60 somethings. Why the 60 somethings? Why not 50? Why not 40? Why this particular age bracket? Are you trying to tell us something? You know, it will be interesting to hear from you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's just fantastic to have so many people, on this call on a Thursday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. And that makes me feel even better, just knowing that it was worth doing. I was supposed to do, I had something for the 50s when I turned 50. And then when I turned 60, I caught the coronavirus. I've never actually spoken out about this, but I had this deadly virus. And I got my negative test the day before my 60th birthday on the 6th of June. Wow. And it really, really shook me. Just the fact that, you think you're being careful, but just everything Pamela says, you just have to do it. But it got me thinking about my entire life. At that time, it was in the middle of the really difficult time and you just didn't know what was going to happen and so on. So I was busy looking at my affairs and, one just didn't know. And I thought about so much in terms of being 60. So many people have been calling me in their late 50s and in their 60s to spend some time with me because they're in a position where they're being told you've got to go, you have to retire. But they're not ready to retire. Who's ready to retire at 60? We're all feeling very cool with ourselves, by the way. And they tell you, what I hate most of these forms, the forms now, they tell you 60 plus. They'll go 45 to 55, 55 to 60, 60 and above. So you're just lumped in with 60 to 100. So I thought about all that. I saw many people who are in incredible jobs. You have these great careers, corporate jobs, you're holding institutions together, you're building institutions. But who are you behind all that? You suddenly step out into the real world after this cocoon. And what next? So I did a lot of research about your health in your 60s, about dying, about your family, about your legacy. All those things came into my mind. And I thought, look, I really would love to do this to celebrate my 60th year, but also to share with others who are either approaching their retirement years or have passed that stage but need to get things straight. So that's what it's all about, just looking at life all over again, looking at sort of seriously considering your mortality. Many corporates retire you on your 60th birthday, whether you're ready or not. Meanwhile, you hopefully have 2-3 decades to go, if God willing. So that's what it's all about. So I thought health should be the first thing. Investments, insurance, protecting those assets. What can you do in your retirement years or those years where you want to slow down but want to still be engaged? And we've got a fantastic lady, I want to be talking about getting on boards for that. Pursuing your passion, pursuing the next stage. Mrs. Annie will talk about that. So I thought I'd got a good team together and then some great institutions. Leadway, one of the leading insurance companies, Chapel Hill, Denham, United Capital, we do have to address our mortality. So that's what it was all about for me. And here we are today. So it was supposed to be in June, but I was recovering from COVID, so I had to postpone it. And then we had NSAS, the protests, all those things. And so it was postponed 6 weeks ago. And then here we are today. That's it in a nutshell.
Wow. Thank you so very much, Nini. And I'm gobsmacked to find out that you caught the bug. You had COVID-19. Oh my word.
Yes.
Wow. Thank God. Thank God.
We were very fortunate. We weren't very sick. We were asymptomatic. We were one of the fortunate ones. Yeah.
Wow. Just before your 60th birthday. Wow. What joy it must have been on that day when you got the results. So there was more reason on that birthday. Thank God for you. Thank God. And thank you. You've said, something key that you've addressed. You step out from the cocoon and what next? So it's not corporates that are putting people out to pasture at 60. I think the retirement age in Nigeria is 60 all around. So private sector, public sector, you know, and at 60, there are loads of people who've got institutional knowledge, loads of people who've got this expertise that they haven't transferred in many instances. And they're essentially just told to go sit at home and they can't give back in the ways that they should. You know, that just seems totally wrong. So it's great that you put this together to steer us on what we can do moving forward, and how we can still add value even after 60 to 100 is a big bracket, I agree, you know, but you can still live an interesting and vibrant life and still be very useful and giving back to society even at that time. It will be great to learn all of from today's session. Thank you so very much for doing this, Nimi. Another question I've got for you. You initially targeted a ladies' webinar, never mind the men who get crushed because they needed to get the information as well. And my question is, why was it?
They've got to understand their wives in this stage as well. So it's very important.
I'm sure they've gotten a lot already, even from Dr. Pamela talking about menopause. When she said that, I'm like, oops, there are men in the room, but yes, good information for them also. So, Nimi, you targeted the ladies intentionally. And I was wondering, is it because there's a difference in the way men handle money, a difference in the way women handle money, different from men? Is there a reason why you thought it was important to address the women in particular?
Yes, absolutely. Just through my years as a banker, I came across, you know, hundreds of women, different stages of life, different phases, and men, and we face unique challenges, certainly. So women, we're just by nature, we're much more tentative. We're a bit risk averse. Most women are. I've come across some women who are very confident and bold in their financial lives, but the majority are just sort of tentative, which doesn't leave for great, incredible success. You've got to do things. You've got to take some risk. We're also the primary carers for our spouses, our children, and the extended family. So it tends to be the woman that'll take time away to follow her husband to another country or to another city, or to stop work to look after a child that needs additional attention. So we tend to be the ones doing that as well. So there's so many of these reasons why women live longer. So a lot of women will find themselves alone in their later lives and have a longer period to actually fund. And one of the most interesting ones, largely because we are still in a very patriarchal society. Many women have delegated almost total responsibility for the family finances to their spouse. Well, it started with their father, then their brother, then their spouse or their partner. So many times it's quite shocking when you see a woman literally clueless. I had a webinar last year and I asked women, the house they live in that they think is their home, who owns it? Nobody knew. Nobody knew.
Wow.
I mean, that was quite alarming. That is the actual family home. No one knew who owned it. I knew that quite a few of them were owned by the bank. They were collateral for loans. Some of the loans were going bad as well. But these ladies were living in these homes and thought, oh, I've got a house and this is the house, but they're not discussing money in the family because they've left everything to their spouse and don't know that he's actually had to mortgage the family home for a business that he's doing. So we do have unique challenges that must be addressed. And you see very successful women not being very successful with their money, and women in positions of power, almost powerless with finances. And it's very disturbing. And so that's why I think it's we tend to want to have these special sessions where we can address our own unique issues and make sure that we do address some of them and people can change their behavior when it comes to their money, because it's such a major part of our lives. Every aspect of our lives is affected by our finances. So it's important to address it, yes.
Thank you so very much, Nimi. And that's shocking to find that people didn't even know they were living in homes that they didn't own and they thought it was all theirs. I mean, rude awakening for a lot of people. Thank you for sharing that.
I guess you can put a poll out there to see if we all know
Yes.
who owns our homes, you know, because sometimes you just don't know it's been mortgaged if you didn't buy it and it's not in your
Wow.
name. Yeah.
So that's a question for everyone on this session. You might want to make a note very quickly. If we put up a poll, we will, but otherwise, make a quick note to self to double check, triple check, and confirm that you own it clear and free, and it's not, you know, it doesn't belong to
don't go home and
someone.
start. Don't go home and start a fight. Just ask gently.
Gently and find out your peace of mind. But important, Victoria says, wow, an eye opener, truly, truly something to ponder on. Thank you so very much. And now you've made me curious and would like to run a poll very quickly just to find out to this question. And if we can run that as a poll before the end of this session, we will. But we also got a couple of questions that will be interesting to see the answers to. So ladies and gentlemen on the poll, we're going to run a poll, very short poll of a few questions that would like you to kindly respond to. It will be interesting to see the results, and you will see where we're going with it in a short while. Wumi, can we run the poll now very quickly, please? Thank you. So we'll just pause on the question. Nimi, I'm going to come back to you. I've got tons of questions for you, but you know, on the back of what you've said, I think we'll do this before we lose this. Okay, Wumi, the poll, please. Okay, it looks like we're having, that's it, thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, we've got some questions for you. Other than the house question, confirming for sure that you do own the roof over your head, we've got this one as well. Do you have a will or any other estate planning tool in place? Can you please answer this? It's a yes or a no, simple option. If you can just click on the poll, Ms. D, thank you so very much. I see your chart, but you can vote either a yes or a no. Do you have a will or any other estate planning tool in place? A trust, anything else, an education trust for the children, you know, anything else, power of attorney that you've handed over to someone trustworthy, reliable.
Joint accounts will be good as well.
Joint accounts, yes, all of that. Do you have that in place? It's a yes or no. Okay, well, we'll move to the next question. Thank you so very much, Wumi. Ramatu, do be kind as to click on the yes or the no on the poll itself. Thank you. Wumi, the very next question, number 2. I think everyone's voted here now. Second question, please.
Hi, Binta. All the questions are showing. All the questions are on the...
We could only see one. Oh, next. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Tap. Are you close to where you need to be financially? Your 60s, your 50, your 48? Are you close to where you need to be financially? Is it a yes or no? You can do a quick check. What do I owe and what do I own? Am I where I should be? The plan was to have $1 billion in the account by the time I was 60. Am I at 570 or am I even not over 100 yet? Total combined assets, what is it that I have? Are you close to where you need to be financially for 60, for 65, for 70? And finally, do you have a comprehensive medical insurance plan? We heard Dr. Pamela earlier on tell us that our health is wealth, and the key thing that, and Nimi reiterated that as well. Do you have a comprehensive medical insurance plan? I mean, COVID came out of the blues, this white swan event that, you know, threw the world into a tailspin, and loads of people don't have medical insurance. And here we were wondering what we will do. God forbid another pandemic hits, you know, many years down the line or in the next century. Well, we won't be here then. But if you were here, do you have a comprehensive medical insurance plan in place? Okay, I think we will wrap up our poll shortly. We'll just count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of this. We will get the poll results in a few seconds. Wumi, would you kindly show that? Excellent. Do you have a will or other estate planning tool in place? And shockingly, 74% say no, and only 28% have that in place. Shocking, right, Nimi? You're the expert. I would love to hear your...
United Capital are on, so they will tell us how to go about it to correct that immediately. Yes.
Absolutely. Number 2, are you close to where you need to be financially? And the honest answer again, 77% say nope, and only 26% say yes. More power to those of you who are there already. Well done. Keep pumping.
I know. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing that 20-something% are where they should be. I didn't know anybody could ever be where they ought to be.
Absolutely. Which is why I said a big well done. And they just need to keep pumping for the days to come. Excellent. And number 3, do you have a comprehensive medical insurance plan? I'm surprised that even 44% say yes. That's excellent. Oh, that's great news. That's great news. That's good to know. While only 58% say no, not yet. I'll change that to not yet. I'm sure after today, by tomorrow, Leadway Assurance will get lots of new customers with people who will hightail it there after hearing today why it's important to put an insurance plan in place. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation in this poll, this revealing results, and we will talk to them as we go along in today's session. I would then hand over to you at this time, Mimi. You mentioned the last question before we went on to take this poll was to say, you know, why was this seminar targeted for women? And in the course of that answer, you also mentioned what has informed your interest in personal financial management. So you've talked about ladies. You might want to talk about what should be important for men as well and to people generally. So I'll just hand over to you at this time and ask you to just take us away and share all you've got with us this evening.
Okay, thank you. Thanks again, Binta. Thanks for hosting this so brilliantly. I'll just run through my slides because there's so much information in there. So I know you're going to bounce me off when I ramble on for too long. So
I'll try.
There'll be so much information in there. So I'll just get started.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Please proceed.
All right. I've talked about, the traditional roles, some people say there's a dysfunctional relationship. I think it was Suze Orman, one of the most famous financial experts. There's a dysfunctional relationship between women and money. That whole stereotyping by society of the woman being dependent and delegating all financial matters to her partner and spouse. What I've come across, though, is women who are even the primary breadwinners in their late 50s sometimes, and they hand over the paycheck to the male member of their household, who then passes the money out to them as he sees fit. Many women don't fully engage with money until they're forced to, in very extreme situations, sort of just divorce and even death. So women tend to procrastinate. I think it's because we're so busy with so many other things that we tend to put this sort of complicated thing aside and leave it far too long. Many women are remaining single for longer. They're deciding not to get married till much later. That has huge financial implications because what tends to happen is that you're already in your 50s or late 40s and you've got children to educate at a very expensive time. And then we have this problem with peer pressure. Your society expects you to be so in a particular way. So you just want to sort of keep up. These are the issues that really affect us that we need to address. Let's talk about Nigeria, where we are. I mean, 2020 has just been some kind of a year, unbelievable. COVID-19, then the EndSARS protests and the tragic aftermath that has left us all pretty traumatized, I think. Then the recession, the shocking cost of living. I mean, just go to the shops and try and fill your basket or the market. Then the value of the naira, the volatile markets, and of course, security concerns. This is pretty overwhelming, but just incredibly, the Nigerian stock market was the second best performing stock market on the planet in 2020, as at 31st of October. You know, so never waste a crisis. I've forgotten who said that. Never waste a good crisis. You can roll over and say, oh my God, this year, forget about this year, COVID-19, you know. There's so much to do, new opportunities, incredible. I mean, some of the things that have changed my life, I've given up my office because I love working from home. It's just awesome. And it's changed my staff's lives as well. They don't have to come out in traffic every single day. And so just look at some of those things, how you can tweak your life. And I was never a party popper anyway. So I'm delighted that I don't have to be obliged to go to events every week or every weekend. There's so many things about our lives now that are so much more structured. So I would say we should embrace that. And as Pamela said, you know, the positive mindset, that pressure that's no longer there. I hear most of us wore just 5 pieces of clothing from February to October. The first time I wore high heel shoes after 6 months, I could hardly walk in the shoes. Yeah, so we're going to talk about sort of very quickly, run through 10 areas. Now look at these areas. It's about setting goals, creating a budget, borrowing, saving, investing, the family, insurance. How prepared are you for this phase of your life? How prepared are you? What does 60-something or 50-something mean to you? We all want to get to the point where you work because you want to and not because you have to. What do you want to do? What do you want your life to look like? Traveling, seeing the world, sharing knowledge and expertise, mentoring others coming behind you, staying healthy, grandparenting, hobbies and pastimes, doing what you love, aging gracefully, leaving an impact, having an impact and leaving a legacy. Your early retirement years, society tends to retire you at 60, but maybe you can't, and that's okay. Maybe it won't be full-time work anymore, but maybe it'll be part-time work, or can you volunteer? You can embrace your philanthropy. You can't afford to stop until you absolutely need to. Retirement ideally should usher in a period of exciting new experiences, philanthropy, and a time to take active interest in things that are dear to your heart. But not everyone is ready for retirement, let alone decades before, during their peak earning years. Unfortunately, far too many women don't realize that they haven't saved enough until it's almost too late. But the good news is better late than never. Your pension will never be enough. It just won't be enough. Your RSA and your pension is not going to be enough. Will there be diamonds in your diamond years? There can be, but do you have passive income? Warren Buffett says, if you don't find a way to make money while you're asleep, you will work until you die. What you need to have passive income is interest income on your deposits. You need property, you need rental income on your properties. You need stocks, you need dividend income on your stocks and shares. So it starts with working at it upfront. You have to do the work first for that income to come in your later years. So for those in their 40s and 50s now, really make sure you focus on those assets that will give you the income. Fortunately, they say that we may have 20, 30 years of life, so you still have to think long-term. So even if you haven't done a whole lot, you need to aggressively address this part of your life. Yes, interest rates are literally, call it zero, but you just must have short-term funds. You must have money that you can access easily. And this interest income could be on deposits abroad. We're going to talk about diversification shortly. You need to have some money, accessible liquid cash that you can have access to. And this will come from treasury bills or bank deposit, commercial papers and so on. You have to have that. It's not going to earn you much money. It's not going to beat inflation. Right now, it's just almost zero, but you must have some money in cash, okay? Your talents, your hobbies, your experience, your skills. I know EBI will talk about that because this is key. You've had 20, 25, 30 years of experience. This is the time to do what you love and love what you do and get paid for it at the same time. Your skills and experience. If you're lucky, you'll get an inheritance. Most people won't get that. So you really have to work at this. I found this a bit scary, but it says that experts say you need 60 to 75% of your current income to maintain your standard of living. How on earth can they say that to us? And then I saw something else somewhere else that said, take your annual expenses, 15 times is what your nest egg should be, minimum. That annoyed me as well. And then some other things said, ideally it should be 20 to 25 times. 20 to 25 times your annual expenses, come on. I think that's ridiculous. I thought I'd share it anyway, but I'm not letting that bother me at all. But truly, many of your expenses will come down, but others go up. It's a matter of your goals. What do you plan to do in your retirement? I mean, I would love to travel. I'd love to, you're so busy all those years working and you haven't seen anywhere in the world. So you really want to travel, but that is expensive. How are you going to fund that time of your life? Now, this is a really big problem. Peer pressure, even in our 60s. There's a desperate desire to maintain the lifestyle you've been accustomed to, even when you can't afford it. So there's a lady I was speaking to a few weeks ago. She's a single mother and she's got a child. She's about to send her child to school in the UK at 13. Now I've told her, don't do it. You can't afford it. I know she can't afford it, but she's breaking her back to do it, to send a 13-year-old to an international school abroad, thousands and thousands of pounds in a currency that you're not quite sure where it's going. And she's a single parent. Surely, I would have thought decisions for someone like that should be just keep that child in Nigeria for now till later, because there are schools that she can attend here. But because the child's cousins and friends are all abroad, she feels that pressure. Be careful of societal expectation. Then funding an unsustainable lifestyle. Maybe you were the regional director of Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and they gave you an incredible house in Banana Island, and you've retired. If you cannot afford it, you cannot afford it. So don't try and keep up with what a corporate was paying 15 million a year rent for you. We have to be so careful about realizing who we are and what we have. Otherwise, you just go broke. Another major issue is dependent adult children. Many of us were independent, largely in our 20s, but because of what has happened in terms of the cost of living and so on, and also, I must admit, a bit of overindulgence of children. Many people have got their 25, 30-year-old children living at home and spending the nest egg. You've got to consider all these issues. Okay, weddings. Yeah. You don't have to have a royal wedding if your nest egg is not royal. Honestly, fortunately, I think COVID-19 has saved us all from those big weddings. I hope so. But this could be a huge chunk of your money from your retirement money. So just look at all these things. Then the status symbol. The Jeeps that they give you in these fancy businesses, and they change your car every 4 years. You better guard that car that you have now jealously. Make sure it's fully insured comprehensively, because you're not going to take 60 million. I gather a Jeep now is 60 million naira just to keep up with what everyone else is doing. So focus on your own goals. Determine your own lifestyle. It may need downsizing. You don't need the 5 bedrooms because the kids have all left home anyway. So just be practical so you can actually do what really matters to you and enjoy your life. You don't want to go broke in your 60s. Next slide. Do you know your net worth? How much are you worth? It's worth doing this exercise before the end of this year. You know, look at all your assets, your bank balances, your property, your stocks, your bonds, everything you've got. And then look at your liabilities, your debt, your car loan, credit card balances. Take away your liabilities from your assets to get your net worth. You want this to be growing every year. If it is not growing, don't panic. It just means that you've just got to cut back on some of those expenses. Next slide, please, Umi. Your income statement is important as well. So that speaks for itself. How much income do you have from rent, dividends, interest, other business interests? Just where's your money coming from and where is your money going? Next slide. Umi, you need to go a bit faster because Binta will soon throw me off. Okay. We talked about savings already, so I'll just go on. You just need to have some cash to cash quickly and easily. Some budgeting tips that we all know, like Christmas is coming. I did my bulk shopping last week. The prices are insane. I'm not buying a bag of rice for myself alone because I don't need I don't need a whole bag of rice. There are just 2 of us in the house. But buying in bulk brings your cost down. These are obvious things, and we've just got to apply these budgeting tips now more than ever. So you buy a cow and share it with 10 people for Christmas, as opposed to going to the supermarket. And we all know these things, but it's just worth mentioning because we also have to start to give away as much as we can. So even if you don't have relations or friends to share with, you need to be giving. We all saw what happened in October, and we all need to do everything we can to include our community in our financial plan. It just goes without saying. We have to build that capacity into our everyday lives because what we saw was a whole different world. Debt is probably one of the biggest traps in your financial security. If you've got a mortgage now in your 60s, you've got debt, try to pay your debt down. It's just eating away from the income that you so desperately need. So you might have to sell assets to pay it down. The assets were to build up for times like this. So even if you have to sell assets, keep working part-time or full-time. A lifestyle change, sometimes you're living in a very expensive area. Do you still need to be in that expensive area, or should you rent out that property and move to a smaller property? You've got to be practical and cut back on waste. Even though they keep saying that, oh, you're old now, you can't afford to take risk, you have to invest for the long term. You have decades more to go, we hope, and so you do need to invest. Next slide. You are the greatest investment. You are the greatest asset. So do keep your own brand, keep the potential for earning. You need to be studying, going on webinars, educating yourself. You've got to keep building your capacity. You have got to learn the 21st century XYZ generation skills, unfortunately. I'm quite alarmed that so many people in their 60s are not even on social media at all. It's just not something they want to do. I don't think we have a choice now, because if you decide to set up a business using your unique gifts and talents, no one's going to know about you anymore, unless you are putting yourself out there and sharing your expertise and, and experience and being a leader of thought in social media. It's a major way to earn income. You've got so much to give after all these years, so share it. Then keep your CV and profile updated constantly. You have so much experience. Make sure it's a work of art, because you should be called upon to join boards, to bring your experience and share your knowledge. Embrace your skills and passion. This is the time of your life to do what you love. Maybe you haven't had time to do this before now. So this is the time to really embrace all these things and monetize them if you can. Thanks, Wumi. Next slide. Now, risk. Don't be that conservative. You need a balanced portfolio, but don't ignore the stock market. Yes, you can lose money, so you won't put all your eggs in one basket. Property is a critical piece in the right location. Stocks have the highest return and highest risk and also return potential, but risk can be managed. You cannot avoid it. It is risky to avoid risk altogether. You just go nowhere. You have to take some risk, but you've got to seek professional advice so that advisors can guide you, looking at your own situation and determine what is best for you at a particular time. Next slide. Wumi? So your diversified portfolio should have property, stocks, cash, bonds, business interests, and don't forget, you cannot afford to have all your money, all your wealth in one geography. You need to diversify across borders and across currencies. It is so critical because, you know, yes, you're from Nigeria, you're Nigerian, you're not going anywhere, but you also want to hedge against the risk of a devaluation, the risk about property prices crashing or the stock market. You just need to have your portfolio diversified. So if one area suffers, you can still recover in other areas. Property is just great, but location is key, and you need to be very careful about title. There are a lot of unscrupulous people in the real estate market. So you can put your money there and, you know, lose it. Be careful of the developers, be careful of companies that are not tested and reputable. This business about building mansions in the village, be careful. I spoke to a lot of women who complained about their husbands spending major family money to put a mansion in the village. Try to build assets that are going to give you a decent return in the city. Then tell him that the money you get from those assets is what you can now decide to use in the village. You cannot afford to build a 10-bedroom mansion that you visit only once a year at Christmas time and have nowhere to retire to. Then the family finances. Are you talking about money with your partner or your spouse? Who owns what? Whose name is the house in? Where are the title documents? Have you talked about your expectations about aging? Do you both have wills? Where are they? And who are the beneficiaries? If one of you is divorced, has the old will been changed? Next slide. Late in life marriages, there are huge implications of inheritance and other concerns, particularly where there are children and assets from earlier relationships. So sometimes it's wise to consider a prenuptial agreement, for example, to ensure that all the assets that were acquired before you came together are tidied up, and then you can have joint assets going forward. Significant educational bills in later years. And then of course, a generation who are caring for expensive children and also caring for aging parents at the same time. This can be a huge, huge burden if the family doesn't come together to discuss, siblings don't come together to discuss how best to cope with this. And for the extended family obligations, how far can you afford to go? If you go broke and you're the primary breadwinner, then the entire family goes broke. So be careful and make sure you protect yourself and you ensure that you have taken care of your financial future before you start giving all your money away. Next slide. A major issue for single women and single parents is having to rely on themselves for the huge financial responsibilities. And what I've found that is a real problem is many single women often bear a disproportionate amount of the burden of looking after siblings and aging parents than their married siblings. They're just seen as the rich aunt who can take everyone on holiday and give all her money away. Be very careful. Should you choose to get married later and start your own family, where is the money going to come from if you've given it all away on everyone else? So just note that you've got to save that money for that time when you're going to need a lot of accounting. Most expensive education is not necessarily the best. What I'm finding in people in their 60s is they gave their children an incredible education, just like our parents gave us an incredible education. Now, our children are going to struggle, it seems, to give their children the type of education that they had. So this is a real issue. I spoke to a couple recently. The husband earns 15 million a year, and his school fees for 3 children is 15 million a year. So I said to them, your kids are in the wrong school. He's under pressure to have his kids in that particular school because he went there. Maybe you can't afford it, but as grandparents in your 60s, this is where you can help. And I think it should be educational insurance. The minute you have a child, get an educational plan going. That is one of the best gifts that you can give to children and grandchildren. Next slide. Dangers of overindulgence. I can't tell you how much I saw in my career as a banker, what happens to wealth when one generation builds incredible wealth and the next generation literally devours the entire portfolio and the next generation is completely broke. And this is one of the hazards of building wealth. You've got to be careful. If you overindulge your children or grandchildren, you make it almost impossible for them to be independent. And this will destroy your money and destroy your nest egg and destroy your legacy. So just be very careful about that. I'll leave insurance for Leadway because we've got a fantastic expert on the line, so she'll take insurance. And Pamela spoke so beautifully about health as well. Just don't forget, know your numbers. Estate planning, I'm almost done, Binta. I just want to read this out. Look at your wonderful close-knit family. Can you imagine that in 20 years, your children may not even be talking to each other? Those were siblings who once laughed together, played together, and shared everything together. It may seem unthinkable, but if your legacy does matter to you, tidy up your affairs. If you have a spouse, children, assets, you owe it to yourself and to them to have an estate plan. And United Capital Trustees will take us through that. Next slide. And let's go on again to philanthropy, the last slide. Yes, I think it's through philanthropy and giving that we attain the best relationship with our money. And generosity enriches our lives far more than money can ever buy. And I think what has happened to us in the last few months should have made it so glaring that it's not even a matter of you trying to be kind. You really do have to embrace your community. The number of people that are hungry, and you can start with Christmas, just help, just help. It's astonishing the level of suffering there is. Start with the people in your own community. You have staff, you have people that you know that could do with help. This is a time to build giving into your plan. And it's not only about money, it's of your time, it's of your intellect, it's of your skills, it's of your experience. I think it's much better if you have a gardener or a security guard that's having difficulty getting his kids, to take one child and pay their fees. You'll be amazed at how low the school fees is. But we just have to all try to do something to make a difference, even in our own small space. Thank you. Next slide, the last slide. Money is not the most important factor. I've worked with some of the wealthiest people in Nigeria and abroad, and money does not buy happiness and fulfillment. As Pamela said, that positive outlook, it's not going to be about money. It is truly about loving relationships with friends, family, your spouse, your children, and most of all, your relationship with God. This could be and should be the most exciting phase of your life. So embrace it and enjoy it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so very much, Nimi. And you've talked about all the things we need to do. And thank you for all those amazing points. And you asked the critical question that deeply resonated with me. How prepared are you? And can I answer that question now? And I'm wondering, the answer is probably no. You said to us to work because we want to at that age when we're diamonds, and not because we absolutely have to. Yeah. The one that threw me was the one about passive income while you sleep. So my money must be working for me.
Yes, correct? You wake up in the morning and you have a dividend alert, then you have rent alert, then you have...
Oh, that's the way to live, and that's what we should all aim for. Absolutely. Thank you so much. You said so many profound things. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this and process everything all over again.
Sorry about the hiccup with the slides. I will share the slides so that you can have time to go through them yourselves. Yeah.
Fantastic. So my one quick question, you've told us all of this. 48, someone else is 55, you're 60, other people are 60. And like we saw from the poll, a lot of people are not where they should be yet. So my question for you, someone is 60 and they don't have this investments to keep this standard of living, what should they do? Is it too late for them to just settle on just...
It's not too late. If they're in... No, don't settle on being dependent. But many people can't even be dependent, because I know so many 60, 65-year-olds whose children are dependent on them. So they can't even rely, there's no one to rely on. They have to keep working. And this is where I'm looking forward to hearing Mrs. Annie talking about your purpose and your passions. This is the time to bring those things to work. You'll be amazed, but we've got to actually focus on, you've given your best to these incredible companies. They hired you and kept you because of how good you were. Can you do something for yourself? Or work part-time? Just start giving of your talent and your expertise.
Okay, thank you so very much, Nimi. We'll crave your indulgence to answer all the questions that
I'll keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And while we move on very quickly as we try and make the most of our time. Okay, thank you again. And this leads us now, ladies and gentlemen, and our online audience, to how we can indeed make those investments that Nimi alluded to. And to take us in this session and give us clarity and advice as to all of this is the head of sales at Chapel Hill Denham. Will talk to us about mutual fund products and stockbroking services. Mr. Temitope Afolabi is an assistant vice president, sales group at Chapel Hill. He's saddled with the responsibility of strategically growing, developing and expanding the retail business. And he does this by working with direct sales executives, distribution, and also leveraging on technology. He currently supervises a team of financial advisors in Lagos and Abuja, and this team is responsible for real estate. He's been at Chapel Hill and institutions and personal finance desk at Investment One. He holds a BSc in economics from the University. Temitope, as a human resources manager, thank you for joining us this evening. We will hand over to you to talk to us about stockbroking, mutual funds, and what other assets you would advise this discerning audience to invest in. Over to you, Mr. Afolabi.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Please confirm you can hear me.
We can hear you. We can see your slide.
Okay.
We can see your face. Would like to see your face. Wow. We want to know what you look like. That is not a ghost on the.
I'll bring up my face almost at the end. Good evening, everyone. And I must say that it's always a tough one coming to speak after Mrs. Akikugbe and Dr. Pamela Ajayi and Ms. Akikugbe. Trust me, they made my work a lot easier. Actually going to, spend some time doing a chronology of our lives as a people and as a country, what we have gone through, the reflections, what we've learned, the aftermath, and obviously quickly delve into the investment horizon and risk appetite. Then I'll talk to you about the product. Okay, so pretty much like Mrs. Akikugbe has eloquently described most of what I was going to say, so I will just go straight to the point. So in the last 40 years of our lives as a people, we must understand that a lot has happened, and we have gone through 6 significant events within 1983 and 2020 that we're at today. So in 83, that was the first time in my life I heard the word retrenchment. It was very practical in and around me. The middle level apparently disappeared in Nigeria. People, the middle level, especially in the civil service and the corporations, they lost their jobs. What happened? It was the year of SAP, which is pretty much fresh. We could still relate to what happened during SAP. So we had SAP, the oil glut, and exchange rate depreciation, and what happened? People lost their jobs and the means of livelihood. Between 1993 and 1998, what happened again? We had so much economic sanctions, widespread poverty, political crisis. It was the year, it was the period between the military era. So coming close to 2007, 2008, what happened again? Financial crisis again happened in Nigeria. It was that year where you hear of an IPO opening on Monday at 10 naira. Excuse me, please. At 10 naira and or at 1 naira, and 5 days after that same IPO, is either oversubscribed or is at 15 naira or something. Most people joined the bandwagon and lost a lot of money because they didn't have enough education into what they were doing and the investment they were investing in. Quickly into 2014 to 2016, we also had an economic recession. Exchange rate depreciation again, people lost their jobs. And we can't overemphasize 2020, the year of COVID. A lot of businesses went down, a lot of firms couldn't pay salary, a lot of people had lost their jobs. The health threat cannot be overemphasized. Now, the question is, what have we learned? Within the last 40 years, we have seen all these things. What have we learned? What should happen to us next? How should we live our lives? What should we guard against? What should we look forward to? What do we invest in? How do we invest? Who should we speak to? All these things are the things we're going to be talking about today because they're quite imperative that we reflect and we understand the aftermath. And those are the things I've spoken about on prepared retirement, which obviously led to poor health, right? Dependencies. A lot of people had to depend on friends, families, and so on. Unexpected migration to rural areas. We saw a lot of people that moved to the hometown, from either Lagos or Port Harcourt and the urban cities to their hometown. Obviously, a lot of them also went into depression, and many did not survive this. But of course, a lucky few got back on track, and they were lucky. The point here is, are we all going to be lucky, or are we all going to have to live our lives on luck? So we must extremely be conscious that there's a tomorrow that's going to ask us different questions. And the simple reason why we'll have to do the needful today is the fact that either you leave or not, trust me, there's an expense to your living. There's an expense to it. So you must be conscious that there are things that, as much as you leave, you would have to spend money. And the only way you spend money in your diamond years is that you had worked today and you're eloquently prepared or sufficiently prepared for that tomorrow. We don't think COVID is the worst thing that has happened or that may happen as a people to us or as a country or to the world. In personal finance, we think being alive and not being able is a lot more embarrassing, okay? And the question is, what have you done all these years? But then it's not the time to beat yourself hard because you still have this opportunity to make do of a lot of things. So you need to understand yourself. You need to know where you're coming from and where you're going to. You need to match your investment horizon versus your risk appetite. You need to ask a financial advisor what you need to do, when you need to do it. And I'm sure many financial advisors are ready to handhold you from today. Okay, so at this stage, I must say to you that the advice we usually give is that you need to be a lot more conservative, because the truth is that you don't have that much energy as you had 20 years ago or 30 years ago. A good number of us could do a 100 meters dash 30 years ago. But obviously, we can't do that again. So you don't want to have to go back to that hard work anymore. So yes, there are opportunities in some kind of risk, some kind of investment that have elements of risk, but then you need to be conservative and you need to speak to your investment advisor or your financial advisor every day and every time. So from the low risk to the high risk, there are opportunities there, trust me. Okay, so if you need to do, if you have a short-term plan, you may just want to stay within the treasury bills, your cash, your treasury bills, or the money market or guaranteed income. And the essence of this is to ensure that you have handy or near cash to cater for the things you need to cater for. Okay, and of course, you can also invest in government bonds and corporate bonds as well. Okay, however, you must, like I keep emphasizing, speak to your investment advisor so that it tells you what to invest in. Okay, there's a world of difference. If, for example, a buoyant state, okay, is coming out with a bond, or a buoyant blue chip company is coming out with a bond, or some company that you really don't know so much about, and these things happen, coming out with a bond as well. Okay, so you need to understand and ask questions so that you don't have to make a grievous mistake even at this stage of life. Okay, and also to balance, you may invest in mutual funds. They are very good investment instrument that you can invest. And trust me, there's an area of mutual funds as well. You have the no risk mutual fund, and you have the high risk mutual fund. You have the ethical mutual fund, the money market, and the balanced mutual fund. So you need to speak to your investment advisor to understand the risk inherent and what you should expect, okay, in investing in whatever portfolio you have decided to invest. Okay, real estate is high risk, and you may want to understand why it is high risk. It's high risk in the sense that if you have not asked many questions and you have not gone to do your personal research and to check if the property you're buying is genuine, or is not been sold to 10 different people even before you bought. Okay, someone told me something that if I'm going to buy a land, especially if you're buying not in an estate, the advice is that please try as much as possible to buy within an estate, because there are lots more secured. Someone told me that, oh, before I buy any land, I just ask people to go and cut the grass or do something. So if they don't get harassed, I know maybe, but then those things don't really work. So as much as possible, you need to ask many questions. You need to know what you're buying, the documentation. And again, you must understand that, that especially in places like Lagos, okay, there are land that, devoid of government extinctions, and there are land that are not. So you must understand these little things before you put your money into real estate, okay? And of course, you have growth mutual funds, and usually growth mutual funds have elements of equities. Equities are shares, okay? And of course, you have the shares, which is pure equity that you can buy on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So all this range from low risk to high risk. So you must understand exactly what you're putting your money into. So this slide perhaps tells us what you can do within the short term, the medium term, and the long term. Okay, so you have your short term, which is perhaps 0 to no risk, 0 to 2 years money. And practically, these are monies you want to use for rent, you want to use for school fees, you want to use for your daughter's wedding or your son's wedding in the next 6 months. Those kind of money should not go into a high risk investment portfolio. They should stay near cash. Okay, money market mutual funds, they should stay in treasury bills, perhaps the 90 to 182 days. They should perhaps be in the time deposit, commercial papers, okay, and government bonds. So also you have a short to medium term, and these are funds that you could use, that could stay in the balanced mutual fund. Now, balanced mutual funds, you must understand, have elements of equities, they have elements of risk. So your capital may or may not be as intact as you had invested in. So it has equities. Equities fluctuate. Okay, they would fluctuate, and they will go with market forces, right? So they may not make that portfolio as secured as you wish. So if you're risk adverse, I would advise that you stay in the money market mutual funds rather than a balanced a mutual fund. However, you can have or enjoy best of two worlds, where you leave one part of your fund in secured and guaranteed investment, and you also leave the other part of the investment in a balanced fund. Okay, so for the high risk, you can invest in things like equities, shares, and perhaps joint ventures. Mr. Akikugbe has spoken about passive income. Yes, they have their risk elements as well. So you must understand the type of passive income or ventures that you're going into as well. And at Chapel Hill, we have a mutual fund. We have the money market mutual fund, where you can start with as little as 5,000 naira and have an additional 1,000 naira into that portfolio anytime you want to invest in it. And the beauty of this is that, at your convenience, month on month, week on week. We have, you know, a high number of student base that we have encouraged that have started doing this, and this cuts across all ages as well. Okay, so you can start to build something gradually from now. Okay, and the beauty of it is that you get dividend payout to you every quarter. So it also gives you that passive income as well. You could reinvest it and you can have it in your bank account. It's a function of how you want to have it. We're women centric, okay, and we're pretty much focused on, you know, empowering women and ensuring that, you know, they have something for themselves as well. Okay, so there's something we call the Women's Investment Fund. Okay, and you could start your investment with as little as 25,000 naira and 10,000 naira in addition to it. Now, you must understand that this is a balanced fund because it's a diversified multi-asset class of investment. So the value of that portfolio would fluctuate. However, the advice is that you leave it for the long term. Okay, you leave it for the medium to long term. We also have the oldest mutual fund in Nigeria, which is the Paramount Equity Fund. Now, this portfolio is apparently 100% exposed to equity. Okay, now you must understand the difference is that, you know, when the market is on the high side, this particular portfolio has a tendency to outplay market indices, while when the market is on the downside, it also has the tendency to go down in value as well. But then this speaks to your risk appetite and what you want to invest in. So for the risk averse, please stay with the money market. If you want to enjoy both worlds, you will stay with the Women's Investment Fund and of course the Paramount Equity Fund. So that is for the mutual fund, and of course we have service products and services such as stockbroking services. We still have a lot of people that have their certificates in their in a file in their homes. We can help you dematerialize them, and of course, at the comfort of your homes, you can trade your stocks. You can buy and sell. We have private portfolio services, and of course, we have dollar-denominated investment. With these three, they are personalized investment, and we usually have to sit with you to understand your what you want to achieve, when you want to achieve it. And of course, we can suggest to you what we think is best for you per time. And obviously, the decision, you would be making your decision. We're always happy to unhold you all through your investment period. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Binta, can I jump in and ask a question? Temi Tokwe, people are asking me about the devaluation of the Naira. The stock market has done so well, and that's so exciting. But people think, you know, why should I bother if I should just change my money and keep it under my bed or in a domiciliary account? What do you have to say about that? You know, it's a long-term investment, and I believe so much in the stock market. But sometimes when they say, look, I'm better off just changing my money, we need to sort of address that.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, we get that questions every now and then. So my quick response to that question is that you need to also ask yourself, why do you want to change your money? Do you have payments in dollars? Most of the time when we have to speak to people, we find out that, oh, they're just concerned so that, oh, when it goes up, I can change my dollar and I have more Naira just again. But then you will be surprised that as Mr. Akikugbe said, the equity market has done extremely well. The Women's Investment Fund and the Paramount Equity Fund had both done about 25% this year. Well, yeah. But then if you have your expense in dollar, well, why not? But then if you don't, you really don't have to panic as much, because I mean, you live your life in Naira and you spend in Naira as well.
So the key is to have a diversified portfolio. So
the key is to have a diversified portfolio.
Opunemi, thank you so much for your kind invitation. And thank you too for hosting this important session. Very, very important conversations. I've been asked to speak about getting on board, and I thought we could approach the subject by answering a few questions. So the first question that I had was, why should we be interested in serving on a board of directors? What does the company benefit from our serving on the board of directors? Next slide, please. The second question is similar, but from a personal benefit. Why should we be interested in serving on a board of directors? What do we benefit? The third question is, why should companies be interested in having you on board? And then let's look at what are the qualities of an effective board member? What are companies looking for? And finally, how do we get into the boardroom? Next slide, please. So in answer to the first question, why should we be interested in serving on a board of directors? What does the company benefit from us being in that room? It's an opportunity for us to share our experience, our competence, our expertise, and our talent. We bring all of this to the table, and organizations are actively looking for your insights. They're looking for these insights from potential board members. Serving on boards presents opportunity to bring technical, industry, management, entrepreneurial, other experience and talents to the table. Everyone has a unique selling point. And this unique selling point, along with your achievements, can help to give a fresh perspective to problem solving and to decision making in the boardroom. It could be your communication style that enables you to make brilliant contributions to constructive challenge or to brainstorming sessions. It could be your intellect in helping to look at issues from a big picture perspective. It could be the fact that you're an excellent listener as well as a thinker and problem solver. In summary, what you bring to the table should be filling a gap in the knowledge and the expertise of a particular board. So the second reason is legacy. Let's stay on that slide. Legacy, giving back. Serving on a non-profit board, for example, is a fulfilling way of sharing skill sets and talents with causes that resonate with one's values. They provide an excellent opportunity to positively affect change. It could be your religious organization, your residents association, or a cause that's actually very close to your heart. As you help, as you guide, that charity, that foundation, that organization should be better able to meet its objectives, to grow and to scale for greater impact as a direct result of your contribution. SME boards often provide opportunities for you to provide your knowledge or expertise to the organization, also for visible positive impact to the company's strategy, to their operations, and to their overall performance. Serving on boards offers you the opportunity to put your personal and your professional networks to good use. The networks that you've acquired over the years and over the decades, your personal contacts can actually elevate your board. If you are well known and if you are highly regarded, if you have extensive experience, your name recognition will enhance the real and the perceived board value of the organization that you serve, and potentially enhance the company brand value. A further reason for board service is the fresh perspective that you bring to the boardroom for decision making, especially when organizations are navigating uncertainty in the face of significant disruption and change. Being that person in the room who is prepared to ask the difficult questions, who will offer constructive challenge and encouragement to management, who will hold management accountable for the pre-agreed strategy and to the corporate values. There could also be opportunities to mentor senior executives. And finally, you bring your own personal values to the boardroom discussion and decision-making. Your own integrity, your accountability, your reputation, these can help to strengthen the culture of integrity in the organization, especially when a company is faced with tough choices. The aspiration ought to be for the organization to be known as the one that does the right thing, as the board sets the tone at the top. These qualities, integrity, accountability, and reputation, have been proven to directly enhance company brand equity. So what is the personal benefit? Why should we be interested in serving on a board of directors? From a personal development perspective, service on a board of directors can give you exposure to other disciplines and skills such as strategy, such as financial acumen, understanding financial trends, reading financial statements, proactively spotting issues, market analysis, and exposure to other industries. From an intellectual stimulation standpoint, a director must keep on top of industry, market, economic, and global trends. Board service requires a holistic view of an organization, and it also requires developing deep understanding of a wide range of topics such as emerging technologies, such as mergers and acquisitions. This knowledge enables the director to make informed contributions to the discussions. Service on a board also enables expansion of your networks to include people with different backgrounds and differing insights. This new network is often an asset for your other roles, or it can simply enrich your own insights from engaging with someone who has a different outlook from you. In essence, having a robust professional network demonstrates that you are a multifaceted person, a person who goes out of the conventional box to get important work done. Serving on a board helps you to grow your personal brand. That's another benefit. A personal brand helps one stand out from everyone else and gives the opportunity to show both current and potential clients your skills and your strengths. Acquisition of transferable skills is a further benefit. Insights that you glean from the company's structure, from the company's practices, from the diverse board members, they build within you skills that are transferable to your other fields of endeavor. And finally, sometimes board appointments come with remuneration to supplement your income. So our next question is, why should companies be interested in having you on board? Several studies have shown that having women on boards is good for business. Companies with diverse boards are more profitable, as evidenced by 3 recent studies. McKinsey's 2020 report, based on their largest data set so far, shows an even stronger link between diversity and performance. Harvard Business Review, in a 2019 article, and Credit Suisse, their research institute, also reinforced this finding. It's also been found that companies who have diverse boards are more effective. Gender diverse boards have been found to correlate with less excessive risk-taking and business failure. A Harvard Business Review 2019 article based on research, found that women were a lot more circumspect. And this resulted in better acquisition and investment decisions and less aggressive risk-taking. And this flowed through to return on investment and to bottom line. And a 2019 UK study showed that when women were on SME boards, they were less likely to go bust. It also found that the insolvency rate is 40% higher on boards that are all male than it is on mixed boards. This is a 2019 study. The fourth reason why companies would want you on board is because shareholders and institutional investors are increasingly positive about diversity. And in fact, they're sometimes even demanding it. Many of us will recall that in January in Davos, the CEO, the global CEO of Goldman Sachs, he declared that Goldman Sachs will no longer take any companies public. They won't go to IPO with any company unless they have at least one female board member. And finally, we've heard of Black Lives Matter. There's an increasing reputational risk that attaches to a lack of diversity on boards. So just as customers are asking and stakeholders are asking, if Black people matter, where are your Black board members? The question is being replicated with the gender lens. If women matter to you, where are your female board members? So let's look at the qualities of an effective board member. What exactly are companies looking for? The first thing is that companies are looking for people that are dedicated and who are committed. Because being a board member requires a high level of dedication and commitment to responsibilities, and these extend way beyond attending board meetings regularly. Effective board members bring a lot to the table, as we've spoken about earlier, and they maintain an unwavering interest to achieve the goals of the organization. Companies are looking for people who are able to lead and to influence others. An excellent member of the board has the ability to lead and to influence others to pursue the goals of the organization. They have the spirit, they have the drive to set direction in order to align with these goals. Another quality that companies are looking for, they're looking for people who are knowledgeable and who are insatiable learners. Board members must be knowledgeable about the organization, its culture, its operations, its mission, its vision, also knowledgeable about the roles and the responsibilities of the board, as well as all of the principles of good governance. Apart from that, board members must have an unquenchable appetite to continue to learn and seek personal and professional development. Boards are looking for people who value discretion and who value confidentiality. Trustworthiness is an essential trait of a board member. Board discussions and meetings are confidential, and each member must be able to manifest discretion at all times and also to support the decisions of the board when speaking on behalf of the organization. Emotionally intelligent and mature people are also being sought out, and also people who are straightforward and impartial. An effective board member brings candor to board meetings. They're able to engage other board members in discussion and in constructive debate without being arrogant, without being disrespectful, to disagree without being disagreeable. The board members, if they are effective, are objective, they're impartial, and they have an ability to drive a point across without making things personal. And they won't hesitate to ask the hard questions on behalf of the relevant stakeholders. So finally, how do we get those board roles? First, do your homework. The first step in approaching a board is to research the organization and find out as much as you can about its purpose, about its history, its rules, its activities. Visit the website, look for its mission statement. If it's possible, to view board meeting minutes, perhaps at AGMs, press releases. Find out who the board members are. Look up their background on LinkedIn and at their various business websites. It's critical that you remember that their values, the values of the other directors and the value of the organization must align with your values, because directors can be liable and sanctioned for company actions. So how do we get on board? Second thing is to take stock of your skills and your expertise. Ask yourself, what do I bring to the table? Over the years, you've traversed multiple roles, perhaps multiple organizations, perhaps multiple industries, and in your personal life as well, outside of your daytime work. What are the things, the talents, the expertise, and the skills that you bring to the table? Carry out an audit. Then ask yourself, do my goals, do my values, do they align with this organization? Do they align with this board? And then brush up on your financial literacy. Finance is a language of business. So prepare. If you need to take courses, if you need to read up, do that work now. And then ask yourself, do I have the time? It's important not to overboard. Don't take on more than you can deliver effectively. Remember that once you sign up to supporting an organization in the boardroom, it requires a time commitment over multiple years. So ask yourself, do I have this time? Another question in taking stock is, do I think like an entrepreneur? And finally, will my skills, my experience, my expertise, will they help me to increase the impact of this organization? And will it help me to further its mission? The best board roles are the ones that give you the opportunity to be engaged in a meaningful and an impactful way. The third step would be to rewrite your resume. A board resume is different from an executive resume. So focus on the skills, the attributes, and the value that you bring into the boardroom. And then register your interest with board databases. There are quite a number these days. The professional services firms all have them. Wimboard, which is an arm of Wimbiz, has a board database. And then talk to people who are sitting on boards that you are interested in, and boards, even people who are sitting on boards that you're not interested in. Register your interest. And then the next stage would be to prepare for the interview. These days, as the levels of corporate governance and the importance of corporate governance takes center stage, it's highly likely that you'll go through some kind of interview process to get onto a board. And even if it's been a personal recommendation, you need to be ready. So ask all the questions and get help. And it's important to recognize that even if you're not successful, don't take it personally, it's okay. Because it's very likely that almost everyone that's being considered for that role is as qualified. So the final decision is sometimes based on a specific need, or perhaps sometimes it's subjective. And be prepared to wait, depending on when the board seats become open and what kind of succession planning is in place. There might be an interest and you're asked to wait. While you're waiting, it's often a good idea to volunteer. Sometimes organizations have an opportunity to join a committee without being a part of the board. Sometimes you can join non-profits, SMEs, to gain board experience. So in summary, it's helpful to use a multifaceted approach when you're seeking to get onto boards. If you're diligent and you're tenacious, you will eventually succeed. So joining a board is well worth doing. You become you become a more rounded individual, and you feel fulfilled because you've given of yourself for a greater good. Thank you.
Thank you, Awoniba. That was absolutely brilliant. One question from me, though. A lot of women I've found, including myself, are a bit shy about approaching people. You know, you want to go on a board, but you're sort of feeling, I don't know whether it's a pride or you just feel that you should be asked as opposed to you going to ask. How do we overcome that sort of reticence? Awoniba, are you there? Is Awoniba there? Is Binta there?
Yes, Nimi, I'm here now.
Okay, great.
My profuse apologies.
That's okay.
Doing...
I'm not sure if Awoniba is there.
Okay.
She had a brilliant talk and there were a few questions.
Okay.
Okay, maybe we should go to the next person to catch up on time.
Awoniba, I think you're on mute. Maybe she can be unmuted.
Okay.
Okay, fantastic.
The host can unmute her.
Absolutely. Wumi, would you do that quickly, please?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay. Awoniba, did you hear my question? I'm not sure if you heard my question, Awoniba.
I heard your question. I decided to be super efficient and I logged on 3 devices off. So can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
We can hear you. We can hear you now. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I said
that was a brilliant presentation.
Yes, I think that it's. Oh, thank you. I think that it is cultural. I think that it is also. I think it's also society's expectations, but I think it's something that we absolutely have to break out of, because we have what it takes. When you sit down and you analyze, if you take stock of the skills that you've acquired, both in the workplace and out of the workplace. You know, last week I had, I was asked to interview a senior was, you know, an okay job. And the feedback that I got was that I am incredibly thorough. And I thought to myself, oh, really? And I think we just keep doing this to ourselves. It's important for us to recognize the fact that we do bring a lot to the table, and we must, and I'm always gratified when people come up to me and say, you know what, I'm rewriting my CV and I'm interested in joining XYZ boards. And I really doff my hat, and I think that it's important that all of us, I think every single person on this call should go away and tell at least one person in the next week what they want to do.
Wow, that's amazing. And you're right, because just sorry, Binta, to interrupt again. A few weeks ago, a young lady called me, and well, young, I'm 60, so she's 40, so she's young. Anyway, she just called me and said she wanted me to be her sponsor. So I didn't know this concept of sponsoring. I thought it was about money, and it wasn't. She wanted me to see her CV, and if an opportunity came, I should remember her. Do you know that an opportunity had come 2 days before she called? And the day she called, it was like a perfect fit, and she got the opportunity. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I would never have thought of her. but she put herself out there, and it was right place at the right time. So we just got to stop being shy and look at what we want and literally
Absolutely.
start to put ourselves forward. Yeah.
And I think we
that.
who are speaking should take our own advice as well.
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Right. My mission is pretty simple. I think a lot of what I need to share has been spoken to in terms of lifestyle. We have talked about finance, but an aspect of finance that is often overlooked is insurance. I think when people think insurance, they think it's an esoteric product, they think of losses, they think of debts, they think of negative. What people really do not think of is, people do not think of insurance as part of their personal finance. And it is really important that we understand that insurance is actually a middle income tool for someone to behave like a very rich person. And that richness is really about how well you understand your personal balance sheet and how well you manage your personal balance sheet. Earlier, we heard about someone taking a mortgage and then the person dies. And when the person died, it's like the house belongs to the bank. Now, that's a liability that has been created against the person's asset whilst alive. But that liability was not properly taken care of in terms of the personal balance sheet. If the person had taken up what we call a mortgage protection assurance, now come back to that, and the person dies, the property still belongs to the family. The insurance company will step in and pay the money to the bank. And so therefore, that insurance policy becomes an asset within that person or that family's balance sheet. But most people don't think of their personal balance sheet and how to order it. A second one is having children, particularly those who have children late and may have to retire before the child leaves the school. The best thing also, again, is to buy insurance as an asset to replace the liability that has been created against a person's income or against the nest value, so to speak. And when that is done, should anything happen as well, the insurance company will come in, continue to pay for that person's education. There's no need for the person to be dependent. There's no need for the person's lifestyle to change. Insurance comes in and pays for that. Now, when we look at our financial freedom, from a personal balance sheet point of view, particularly professionals who may not have the ability to continue to earn the income that they were earning when they were active, it is important that they begin to then look at how do they sustain that income. As workers, we pay taxes. If you're an executive, your average tax will probably be about 10 million a year. So you pay 10 million a year to government. You can use insurance to manage the tax that you're paying to government. And one of the ways by which you can manage the tax that you pay government is to buy a life insurance product. And I'll come to different types of life insurance product. But I also want to bring that in talking about how we manage our personal finances and how we manage our personal assets and our personal liabilities. Because essentially, as a person, we are a number as well, because we create value for ourselves and we also create liabilities to ourselves. But one thing we do not have control of is what will happen to us. And with insurance, it's not when the thing has happened or is certain to happen that we then begin to think of how we can use insurance as an asset to prevent the negative outcome of that which we do not know when it will happen. So in calculating our network, and calculating our net worth, we must begin to factor in what insurance can take care of our personal financial liabilities. Today, I've been asked to talk more to life insurance and health insurance. But there's a whole gamut of them, particularly on the general insurance side, where we also have what is called a personal accident policy, which can respond and pay us a certain sum of money should we, unfortunately, at a later stage in life, be involved in an accident, and then we need money to also care for ourselves beyond the health insurance that we may have in place. So, life is a chance. We know what we have. We know what we're doing. We probably know the value of our income, but we can't tell what can change. So essentially, we don't know how to plan for chance, but life is chance, and chance happens. We can become one of the statistics of it. We pray not to, but we can become it. So, but we can use insurance to balance the winds of faith. We can use insurance as an asset within our personal finance to take care of the things that we may not have planned properly for. And again, it helps us to manage our personal taxes whilst we're working, whilst we have the network. Now, as we begin to think about how we work in life, we then have to think about life again in bits as well, which takes me to the two areas I'm meant to talk about. So life insurance. When we talk about life insurance, people often think only of the, again, like you said earlier, the negative aspect of things. But one way we need to think of life insurance is more actually about buying money. It's about buying money for tomorrow. So when you have an investment arrangement, it's essentially what you can put aside by yourself. If you have a savings policy, it's essentially what you can put together by yourself. If you invest in a mutual fund, this is a value that you put into the mutual fund and the accrued value of the mutual fund that gets shared with you. But here's the thing. The money you don't have, you can actually use a little bit of your investment or your savings to buy much money than you could ever imagine you're able to save by yourself. So say when you look at your personal P&L, your personal balance sheet, and going back to your example of what you need to put aside to ensure that you're able to live the life that you were living before, to sustain your lifestyle, what you need to put aside, say 20% of your expenses times 20. Now, when you're also thinking of what you want to put aside for children or for your family or a legacy that you want taken care of, should anything happen to you, you may not even have enough savings to do that. You may barely have enough savings to cover expenses of celebration of life, so to speak. But when you factor in insurance, your savings of 2 million, out of that, the interest on it, you could use to buy money. A legacy money was 10 million or 20 million. Now, you couldn't put that money together whilst alive, but you can buy that money for your family members, and that money can be used for various things. That money can be used to enable the family, celebrate the person's life, take care of expenses, funeral expenses. That money can be used to protect the education of a child. That money could be used to pay off the mortgage that has remained unpaid off because something has happened. So money purchase is an aspect of life insurance. What I also like to mention when I talk about money purchase is that a life insurance could be the will that a person leaves. You may not have enough asset to leave in a will. In fact, you can even sell your property and use it to go on the world travel you want to do. All you need to do is take out of the money for the sale of the property to buy a life insurance, bequeath a certain sum of money using that life insurance to each of your beneficiary. You could even use it for a charity if you want. So when we think of life insurance, we must not only think of the aspects of it that has to do with loss, but really think of it more from the financial side of it. It has to do with leaving money for people, helping people live the life that they were living when the person setting up the life insurance was alive. Now, that's on the legacy part. On the will part, education protection, mortgage protection. Now we come to another aspect of life insurance, which is essentially savings and investment linked. This is where insurance companies invariably compete with other mutual funds or banks, but there's a difference. And most people do not really know that difference. Is that when you take on a savings or investment linked life policy, you don't have immediate access to it. You cannot call it. You can decide to say that you want that money for something, say in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time. It could be that cruise. It could be, that house you want to buy, that smaller house. It could be anything that you want to do, really. You then buy the insurance policy, which has a life element, as a savings and investment element. And because you also get a tax advantage, you will get that money at the end of the 10th year or the 15th year or the 5th year to do what you want to do. And because you have a tax advantage, it gives you more benefit than you would an ordinary savings policy or an ordinary, investment policy. You could also take on, what we call an endowment. An endowment can be used for very similar things to what I mentioned earlier in terms of paying off a mortgage. Maybe the person retires early before the period of the mortgage is ended. You could buy an endowment and then use that to pay the education as well. And then really at the end of the day also, if you really don't have any personal liability left, you could use the money for endowment for anything else you want to do, because it is really your cash and you can deal with your cash as you like. Now, deposit administration is what is more similar to common investment or common savings products. But what we have found within this current environment is what we call negative yield. Negative yield is essentially that inflation has eroded the value of your money. And because inflation has eroded the value of that money, even if you get an interest at 7%, and there's no interest at 7% anymore, but inflation is at 12 or 14%, you necessarily have incurred a negative yield. Though you get a tax advantage, you then have to again look at the tax advantage you get for deposit administration linked to a life policy. Does it help to mitigate the impact of the negative yield? If it doesn't, then you're better off looking at a pure life endowment or a money purchase life insurance for legacies. Another thing is retirement annuity. A number of people at the diamond age will be thinking of retirement. They have already accumulated a nest egg with a pension fund administrator. Now, that pension fund can then, at retirement, be turned into what is called a program withdrawal, which is essentially the PFA company paying you a certain sum of money depending on the period for which you want to be paid. But there's a risk to that, because the risk to that is that, even if you say you want to be paid for 20 years, or 10 years or what have you, because you want a higher payout, you may run out of money. Now, but if you buy a life retirement annuity, you transfer that investment risk to the insurance company, and the insurance company will pay the retired person for the rest of the person's life from the single premium from the pension savings. Now, but in addition to that, if you're within a high income earning job as an executive or as a professional, you can also buy what we call a deferred annuity. So you can create your own pension savings from start, in addition to the PFA. So you basically go to the insurance company, they will price you and then say that you want a deferred annuity that will pay up in 10 years' time or in 15 years' time, then you get priced for that. And then you pay the premium for that. Again, the beauty of buying a retirement annuity is that you can do the same for yourself and for your spouse. So you have what we call a spousal annuity, and you can get priced for that. And the spouse that outlives the other spouse continues to be paid until that spouse also more or less transits. So this is a general summary on life insurance. And I've done it this way because insurance companies have different products and different names they give to products. But in thinking about the different products, what is essential is to determine whether it's a pure money purchase, which is essentially good for legacies and debts. Is it a savings and investment linked, or is it a retirement annuity, which is essentially your pension? Now, to move forward into the health insurance part. For health insurance, I was happy when I saw the poll, and a lot of people, about 48% have health insurance. And the 48% believe that the health insurance is adequate. But sometimes you have to ask that you need to look at the health insurance as well to really ensure that it is adequate and covers certain things like geriatric medicine. Because even though it may be adequate now, perhaps, as part of employee welfare benefits, the companies that you're working with are paying for it. But what then happens when you retire? Do you get geriatric medicine? Do you have a private medical insurance that is more of managed care? Do you have one that is more of the funded managed care, which is by your company as part of your retirement package? Now, managed care is often by HMOs. And HMOs, can charge based on capitation to certain selected hospital in order to manage the expenses to that hospital. Most people tend to have complaints about that. There's also what is called the fee for service. So fee for service is essentially you go to the hospital, they will still bill you, and then the private medical insurer is entitled to adjust the fee or to agree a fee scale to pay for the treatments received. But as we move towards retirement, it is important to begin to think of critical care, of geriatric medicine, of the things that we may need, God forbid, should there be an accident. Now, beyond private medical insurance is also an aspect of insurance that people really do not think about. Like I said, every insurance has its limitation in terms of exclusions, in terms of limits as to amount claim, in terms of when the the critical event has already occurred, in terms of whether you stop paying the premium or you have to continue to pay the premium, or whether you get the amount and then everything else ceases. So we have to look at what are we covered on properly and get a financial advisor or even an independent insurance advisor to look at the exclusions properly and to tell us what we may need to buy to be able to get a better coverage. One of such is what we call a critical illness policy. Critical illness essentially works like the money purchase under a life insurance. You decide the amount of money you want to buy. So if you want to buy 100 million for critical illness, say, again, back to personal finance, you have been advised that the cost of care, should you have cancer, is X amount of money. Should you have a kidney, is X amount of money. Should you have a heart condition, is X amount of money. Now, you have then decided that, okay, based on the advices on the cost of care, should one, God forbid, be afflicted, what is that money? So if you decide it's 100 million, all you need to do is buy a critical illness policy for 100 million. If it changes and inflation moves the amount up, You can change the value of critical illness, or you can buy an extra critical illness policy again, say to 200 million, increase it and buy. And when you do that, assuming there's a limitation within your private medical insurance, you can call on the money, on the cash from the insurance company to step in. And guess what? If it's much more than what you require, the money is yours, essentially, to deal with as you like. Then we have hospital cash. Hospital cash is also a form of health insurance that people really do not think of. Again, as well, it covers out and in patient services. Again, also, it's a cash-based policy, which means you choose the amount of cash you want to buy. It's just that you cannot access that cash unless you require it as an outpatient, or unless you require it because you have been hospitalized. Now, we all know that within the country, there are certain limitations in terms of clinical care. So some people want to go abroad, for some specialist that they believe is not available in country, or they have been advised by their physician that it's better that they go abroad. You can buy a policy for that as well. And you can buy it with what is called a concierge care, which means that even if you don't have family to stay with you, they will provide you all the things that you require of a family member. These policies, though, are graduated into, do you want a North African policy, say to Egypt, where they purportedly have certain areas of expertise, or to the Middle East, to some parts of the Middle East, like the UAE, or do you want an India cover where they have a certain type of expertise, quote unquote, or do you want Europe, or do you want Europe and USA, or do you want worldwide? All of this costs money depending on the plan that you choose. Of course, the Africa Care, international care, is the cheapest. Now, geriatric medicine also becomes important. Do you want to purchase just to cover what you may need at a certain time when the health may fail? Now, you have to decide that. Take a critical look, whether on the life side or the health insurance side, become your balance sheet and become your P&L, and start to look at yourself as a number. Now, there's a Yoruba proverb that basically, and I'll just translate, that which we will become when we are rich, it is when we're poor that we will know it, not when we're rich. So at a stage where we're beginning to think of what we need to do for ourselves towards retirement, this is a stage where we need to start planning. It is not when we are not earning any income, or we don't have sufficient savings, that we would then begin to think of what we need to do to ensure that we maintain the lifestyle to which we are ordinarily accustomed. And the lifestyle to which we are ordinarily accustomed, to quote Mimi again, can actually be guaranteed if we plan properly financially. Now, it is important, and I'm showing this corporate information to underscore certain things. And the bit I want to really emphasize is on the right-hand side of the screen, that when you're also buying an insurance policy, because it's a long-term policy, particularly for life and health, it is important that you know the balance sheet. Remember, we're talking about your own personal balance sheet and your own personal profit and loss. It is also important to begin to think about the balance sheet and the profit and loss of the insurer that is going to cover your financial need in the future, that is going to give you that insurance asset that will answer all the things that your savings cannot answer. So when you look at that, please look at the insurance company's balance sheet in terms of the shareholders' funds, look at their asset base, and what is more important, look at their insurance funds. How are they with their insurance funds? Are they conservative with it? Are they not? If these are questions you're not able to answer yourself, please speak with a financial advisor or an insurance broker that understands finance, and then they can begin to give you the kind of responses that you want, because you do not want to play with your financial future, and where your money sits is very, very important. And as you can see from Legal Assurance balance sheet, we have a very strong balance sheet, the largest balance sheet within the insurance market, and the largest shareholders funds within the insurance market, and we've been around for 50 years. So as we say within our business, chance is part of life. But if we can, and if we have the advantage and the wherewithal to do it, even if it's just from the little tax that we're taking back from government to buy what we need to buy, we must try as much as possible to leave absolutely nothing to chance. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Tola. That was incredible. There's so much that we just don't know. I think insurance companies have really got to do a lot more in terms of education for all of us. There's so many things I've just never known about, and you've broken it down so well. Because we're running very late with time, I'm going to leave the questions to the end, if you don't mind. So we can now take United Capital and then Mrs. Annie. We don't want to miss those at all. And then we'll take the questions at the end so that those that aren't able to stay will be able to drop off. We're running behind time. I hope everybody can still stay. There's just so much more to talk about. I think we should probably take two questions for Tola, two insurance questions before we move on to United Capital.
So there's a question for her that says, how can pre-existing conditions be addressed in insurance policies?
Okay. Tola, did you hear that?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Insurance, like I said earlier, does not cover certainty. So if you already have a pre-existing condition, it may not necessarily cover it. So, but you may need to disclose it. And perhaps there is what we call differential underwriting, so that if it is being managed within what we call medical underwriting, then it can be differentially covered. But if it is not disclosed and it is only at the time of claim that it is found that the person has a pre-existing condition, then that necessarily is an exclusion and the person will not get paid for that. And that's why I keep saying that it is important to actually look at whatever insurance policies you have. You need to understand what the exclusions are. It's just very important.
Thank you. And it's all about reading the small print. I had some issues with my eyes, and I didn't realize that my fantastic plan did not include eyes and teeth because I had never read it. So it's just important to read the small print.
Very important. Or get someone to do it for you.
And sort of clarify exactly what you're signing up for. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes. Thank you so much. We hope we'll take more of your questions after the last two speakers. And so we hope you can stay on a bit longer with us. Thank you very much. Now we've got United Capital presenting what we don't want to talk about. Estate planning is crucial.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. A lot has been said, really. It's mind-blowing. You know, it actually shocked me when I saw the post for people that even know about estate planning or have some form of estate plan at all. And in my deepest mind, I was like, gosh, am I sure I haven't failed in this profession? Am I sure I've spoken to people enough about trust services? It's so amazing that a lot of us have things here and there all over the place. And like Madam Mimi said, some don't even have the right title. They don't even know what they have. That little cash in your bank account, you possibly just feel, if anything happens to me, my children will get it, or my husband will get it. And it's amazing how, you know, things can happen to people. So let's just go right into it. Okay. Please confirm if you can see my slide, please.
Yes, we can.
It's a blank right now, though.
Yes, I know. It's a blank page.
All right.
And I wanted to be sure
absolutely.
we can all see that blank page. So
Yes, we can.
This blank page is here for a reason, and we'll all come back to it. But just in your mind, just picture this blank page and start listing all the things you have. Your personal belongings, your cash in bank, that land you have in Ekpe, or the one in the village, your 10-room mansion that Madam Nimi spoke about. Just, you know, try and list it on this blank page and we'll come back to it. Now, estate planning. So a lot of people, when you talk about estate plan, they would just be like, okay, what's estate planning? I don't want to write a will. And, you know, like she said, it's one thing nobody wants to talk about. When you talk about estate plan, they just feel it's all about death. And, you know, a mentor used to say, life and death are just two sides of the same coin. And that's the reality. So it depends on what side you are, and whatever side you are, being the good one or positive one, make the best of it. So what's estate plan? Estate planning is just a process of you putting together whatever you have and, you know, outlining how you want them to be disposed or used. So it could be how you want it to be used while you're alive, or how you want it to be disposed when you're gone. What constitutes your estate? It's all the property you own. Your property could be your personal property. It could be something that is of a joint tenancy, meaning maybe, for example, my father passes on and, you know, bequeaths his house in the village to myself and my younger brother. That's what is called a joint tenancy or joint ownership under law, right? So I am not solely the owner of that property, neither is my brother, right? And so if you put together all your assets and deduct your liability, what is left is what is really your estate. So let's call it all your earthly possession. And why is estate planning important? Estate planning is quite important because it is not just about you, it's about protecting your loved ones. Now, a fantastic tool to manage or put together your estate plan is a trust. And so anyone could say, so what is this trust you're talking about? See a trust as a clone of you. When we say a clone, meaning just imagine God just decides to create another person, or you exactly, just in a bodily form. So see that trust as a clone of you, because it's a legal entity, just like you in the face of the law, that owns properties and assets of all kinds, and it can just help you keep them or transfer them to a third party. I put the myth there. A lot of times when I talk to people, they'll be like, Auntie, how much do I have? I don't have money. I only have just my salary account. And the truth is, they just feel estate plan or trust generally is for the wealthy. But it's not, it's for everybody. You know, when I was called on to take on this presentation, my managing director, Mrs. Tokumba Ajayi, was supposed to be on this call, but she had other engagements. And they told me it was for women 50 and above. I'm like, what am I doing there? I'm not yet 50 anyways. But, you know, in the course of my profession, I've met from the youngest to the oldest, believe me. And I just realized that it cuts across board. The same thing, it's applicable to all of us. We have to plan, whichever way you look at it. And at every stage in our life, for each stage, you have obligations, you have assets, you have liability, be it tangible or intangible. And those assets, you can pass on to other people, right? Madam Ajimugube has already spoken about your skills that you can use on the board, you know. So call it tangible assets or intangible assets. It could even be proprietary assets. So for example, let's say you own a company, you own a software. These things are assets that you can pass on to other people or pass on to another entity. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be about the wealthy that speaks about trust or estate management. So why should you really set up a trust? A trust just allows you to manage your asset independently of you as a person, right? And it just gives you that chance to avoid all the issues that come with the drama of dying intestate or even wills, which we'll speak about as we go on. It also protects your beneficiaries from the impact of unforeseen circumstances. So I'm kind of a storyteller, and I would like to tell a short story. So sometime in 2014, I was actually still in the insurance industry, and I met with some client. I talked to him about insurance and everything, because the company I was working with then had insurance, trust, investment, and everything. So you're allowed to talk about everything the company does, right? So I spoke to him about insurance. When he wasn't buying into it, I spoke to him about trust. I did everything. And he would just be like, no, I don't need it. I'm rich. See, my family members are okay. My brothers are rich. This one is in Canada, that one is in US, blah, blah, blah. And you know, after a while, I would let him be, then I'll call him back and all of that. But he never bought into any of these products outside investing his money anyways. And sometime in 2017, he called me early hours of Sunday, work day, and he was like, can you please meet me in my office early, like 7:30? And I'm like, it's 5 a.m. He said, yes, I really need to see you. So I went to his office, and he was pacing around his office like there was, you know, real fire burning down a property. And I was like, Mr. A, what is the issue? He said, last night, his friend's wife came to his house, almost naked, wearing tattered clothes. And he inquired what happened. So apparently the friend died in 2015. There was some incident wherein somebody fell off a boat, blah, blah, blah. One of his rich friends also. And you know, they did the funeral and everybody just thought everything is fine because at least the guy is rich and blah, blah, blah. Alas, the family members of the deceased came to take over all the assets and sent the woman out of the house with the children. And maybe out of shame, in quote, she couldn't, you know, just go to some people. So she's been, you know, really managing herself and all of that. And I think she had gotten to that brink wherein she had to knock on the door of my dear client. And, you know, I was like, okay, so he said, well, that he couldn't sleep all night. And he's wondering to himself, he was wondering, asking himself, what if his wife is the one in this position? And that's the truth. It could be anybody. So the real sense is, you know, they are all rich and doing well, but when you are gone, you cannot really have, I mean, you don't have control of what happens behind your back. You can't say that my beloved brother will act in this way, right? Especially when people die intestate, which we'll get to shortly. Okay, so I will just run through this quickly. Like I mentioned, a trust is a legal entity that holds your asset for you. You creating the trust, you're called a settlor, and the people you're creating the trust for or in favor of are called your beneficiary. So the intermediary in this case is the trustee that holds that asset in trust for your beneficiaries. So let's look at it like you're transferring your legal rights to the trustee to hold some asset for you for the benefit of your beneficiaries who owns an equitable right in that asset. Strictly, the duty of the trustee is just to manage the asset, keep it safe. In some cases, manage it to generate some return, depending on what kind of assets we're talking about here. Sometimes it's just to hold in perpetuity. Some people want their name and their legacy to live forever. So they create a trust in perpetuity wherein it just keeps going and one generation to the other. Now, there are different ways wherein you can create an estate plan. So you can go our traditional way, which is through wills, or you can go the equitable way or the more modernized way right now, being through a trust. Let's talk about a will first. So when people hear a will, they were like, no, I don't want it. Some people would even, maybe due to the tenets of their faith, are not disposed to drafting a will. But whichever way we look at it, either a will or a trust, the most important thing is you have something to protect your loved ones. In the case of a will, so a will is just a legal document that states what you have and how you want it distributed. On this slide, I've put the different will packages that we have at United Capital Trustees, and I will run through them briefly. So for example, a simple will covers what we call our bronze will, covers cash in bank and RSA. I am not so sure if a lot of people know that even under the Pensions Act, you require to have a will for your beneficiaries to access the balance in your account when you've passed on. It will be very difficult for your beneficiaries to access what is left in your pensions account when you are gone. If you die intestate, it is a law, like under the Pensions Act. So if for nothing in the world, for the sake of the fact that I've worked so hard, my company had deducted funds from me and they've been magnanimous enough to add some other portion to make up my pension, it's your sweat and you should protect it, which is why you need to have at a minimum a simple will that covers your cash in bank and your RSA account. Madam Nimi talked about joint accounts during our presentation. Yes, except you have a joint account, that's when your cash in bank is protected. In fact, if you have a joint account and it is A or B, there are still some issues around it, except where you have a mandate that says either A or B. Because immediately one of the spouse passes on, yes, under the law, you have the rule of survivorship, wherein the rights falls on the other party, but the bank will still want to know. They will still want documentation. They will still want to do their due diligence to be sure that that person has passed on. So that, if you run a joint account, can also put a strain because you might not have easy access to those accounts immediately until you provide some documentation. Now you have the gold wills, wherein it covers your cash in bank, your RSA, some selected assets, maybe your real estate, your tangibles, maybe like your jewelries and all of that, or your stocks, for example. And there you can also have what is called the appointment of your executor. So you can state, I can say, okay, if I pass on, I want my younger brother to be my executor working in line with the trustees to administer my estate. You have the platinum that covers everything. In fact, you can do a will and also do what is called a testamentary trust just to have a backup plan, right? Now, a lot of people would say, but I have next of kin, if anything happens to me. Next of kin is not your beneficiary. And if anything happens to you, your next of kin should be seen as a designated representative. Next of kin is who they can call on to inquire information. That doesn't pass any legal right to devolve your assets to your next of kin, which is why you really, really need to think about an estate plan, wherein you create something that states, these are the things I have, and I want it distributed this manner. Now, for some people, as we speak, they have parents that passed on, and they can't even access those people's assets. There are issues on it, maybe in court, or even the fact that they cannot even dispose the asset reasonably because they don't have the legal right or the title to do so. That's where you have your procurement of letters of administration. So if someone dies intestate, you're required under the law before you can access their asset to have what is called letters of administration. And if you don't know how to go about it, United Capital Trustees is here to help you to do all of that. What are the advantages of a will? I like the first bullet point so well. So, you know, different things, I mean, culture, religion, we're a peculiar country, so we have it all around us. I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm this, I'm that, I'm atheist, whatever it is. For whatever religion or culture you belong to, there is some form of rules that apply. So let's take culture, for example. The customary laws of devolution applies. So I don't know if some of us know that as a woman, for example, if you pass on intestate, you don't have a will, you don't have a trust. Under some customary laws, your asset automatically goes to your husband. I kept quiet so that I can sink in. Yes, your asset goes to your husband. The only asset that doesn't go to your husband will be the asset you inherited from your father's house. And guess what? It goes back to your father's house and to the male family members or the head of that family. Now, just let's play the devil's advocate or...
Sorry, can you say that again? I don't think I heard you right. Just say that bit again, sorry.
Okay, I said under some customary laws of devolution in Nigeria, as a woman, if you die intestate, meaning you died without a will or a trust, your asset automatically passes on to your husband if he's alive. The only part of your asset that doesn't go to your husband is that asset you inherited from your father's house. And that also goes to the male members of your father's house or the head of the family. That is some customary law in Nigeria as we speak. Let's assume your husband has passed on and all of that. The laws of the land will take over. And it depends on where you reside or your origin. So my point being, different laws can be applicable to your asset when you do not do the right thing. And what's the right thing? Create an estate plan. I was about to say, let's play a funny one. Just imagine, you know, Rifemi Akeredolu passes on, my asset goes to my beloved husband, and alas, he married some other woman. My husband is such a sweet, fantastic man. He loves his children. He is everything to myself while I was alive and to my children. But the woman is not so nice, you know. And in his will, because you are gone, he also loves this woman dearly, or maybe he even died intestate again. And the asset now goes to the head of the family of his own house. You know, it's a whole lot of drama that you do not want to put your loved ones through, really. Even as professionals, when we have clients come to us to help them with grant of probate or letter of administration, as a corporate entity, it's still a whole lot of drama around it. Now, compare that to individuals trying to do that all by themselves. My point is, like the last speaker spoke about, don't leave anything to chance. Don't think it will be okay, they'll be fine. No, they might not be. As we speak, United Capital is often appointed by the court to be the party in between families fighting over a will in court or fighting over assets, and will be appointed as trustees to manage that process, because sometimes the courts are actually tired of all the drama. I don't see a reason why anybody wants to do that to their loved ones, to just say, whatever I have, be it a penny in your bank account. You don't want to leave it to chance. You want to do the right thing. So also, there are statutory rules of inheritance. You don't want government to be the one sharing your asset that you worked so hard for, right? You also have the chance of you stating the way you want it. I want my bag, my Gucci bag, to go to my daughter. I want my land in Ekpe to go to my son. Not that some Oloriebi, like they call it in my own culture, in Yoruba land, would say, I have the right to distribute it the way I want. You do not want to leave that. You do not want that to happen, right? Also, I'll quickly talk about living trust. Now, living trust, just see it as a will, but a living will. So trust is testamentary in nature, meaning it only kickstarts when you are gone. So whatever you put in a will, for example, would only be read or be used when you are gone. But for a trust, it's on the flip side. It's a will, but you can use it while you are alive. So you can create the will, you can create the trust, and you can say, this is what I want to use my trust for, and you can utilize it while you are alive. Meaning, whatever asset you put in that trust, for example, your house, you're still living within that house, right? What a trust does for you is just very simple. All the cons of a will, like litigation, some people going to court to dispute the fact that the will is not valid. So you've seen situations where wills are created and the children will just go to court and say, no, my father wasn't okay when he did this will, he was under duress. My father's last wife, put a gun to his head to put her as the sole beneficiary. All those things do not happen under a trust, because a trust is subsisting like the settlor or the creator of the trust. So you can change anything inside your trust while you are alive. You can add to it, you can subtract, you can even revoke it and start a fresh one while you are alive. So what's the benefit of you creating a trust? It protects your asset, and it ensures that your beneficiaries are taken care of. No drama of probate, like I mentioned, that you can see under a will. Challenges, faced under a will, drama in court are also avoided. You can appoint a designated representative that you can say, when I'm gone or incapacitated, this is the person I want you to liaise with regarding taking care of my beneficiaries. A trust protects your asset from creditors. You heard me, from creditors. So Madam Nimi spoke about mortgage plans, wherein some of us are even currently living in a house that we did not know that it's mortgaged, right? So a trust also, when you create your trust, it protects your asset from creditors, especially if you have some obligation over such asset. The trust helps you manage it in a way that that asset is not totally lost to your creditors. You also have the tax benefits. So inheritance tax in Nigeria, for example, we don't talk about tax evasion, we talk about management of tax or tax avoidance. And a trust can also help you manage your tax very well. And it reduces the risk of litigation. For different estate planning tools, we have spoken about a will, we've spoken about a trust. You also have endowments and foundations. There are people that are interested in charity right on this platform, no matter how little. Madam Nimi spoke about how you should take care of people around you, even starting from your community. A trust can help you do that. You don't have to, be hands-on doing that by yourself. You can create a trust that you say, I want you to feed 50 people in my community every month. I want you to pay for 10 children's school fees every year. Things like that. You can use a trust to create that. You can create a family. You can also, do a succession plan wherein all your assets can pass on from one generation to the other. Now, the value proposition we have at United Capital is, as you have seen on this slide, if you want to go fast, then go alone. But if you want to go very far, meaning to even your 10th generation, we can help you do that. As United Capital has been in existence for over 50 years, and we are here to help you. I'll be in the chat session to answer all the questions you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mrs. Irefemi Akeredolu. Truly, that was brilliant and major food for thought for all of us. I wish we had more time so we could take all the questions and just gain some clarity on the things you've talked about. Mrs. Akinkugbe had to ask you to repeat that bit about the customary law in some parts of Nigeria, because it was shocking for her to hear that. And I'm sure a lot of the people on this session are amazed as well that that's what actually obtains even today in Nigeria. But thank you for that educative and informative presentation. Please take the time to respond to the questions in the chat box. We will truly appreciate that. And after this, after the last panelist has spoken, we would hope to come back to you to ask a couple of the questions that we might still have unanswered at that point in time. I first off must apologize again to everyone. My profuse apologies. I just kept getting thrown out of the session, and it's pretty strange. I'm on 3 different devices using 2 different providers, but this is what technology does to you sometimes. So apologies about that. We're moving right on, and I particularly have been looking forward to this session where we're going to have the amazing Mrs. Ipiai Ani talk to us about pursuing your passion, moving forward into the second half. Diamonds are forever. You're 60 and over, 51, 48, whatever it is that you are, but you're on this chart. You've got a lot to learn from this particular session. It gives me great pleasure to bring her on. Her CV is as long as my arm. She's very well accomplished. She was a senior management level in the large corporate, in the private sector. She's a human resources management and financial consultant, an expert in many, many areas. Permit me to just cut this short and just move very quickly because of her time, our time till now, to bring on Mrs. Ipiai Ani to tell us about pursuing our passion and what we can do. A lot of people are pivoting into new sectors and into new careers even after 60. We refuse to be put out of pasture. We have affirmed as much, and so she will tell us what we can do going forward. Please give a warm round applause for Mrs. Ipiai Ani, and thank you, ma'am, for your patience up till now. Thank you so very much. You have the floor.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's been an amazing afternoon and evening. I've taken copious notes, so much learning, so much learning. So I know, the time is far gone, so I'll go right into it. And I'd like to start by reading a quote from an English author. It says, "The one thing that you have that nobody else has," excuse me, "the one thing that you have that nobody else has is you. Your voice, your mind, your story, your vision. So write and draw and build and play and dance and live as only you can." Now, what's that saying is that you are an individual. There is only one you. Nobody else has your fingerprint. Even twins, identical twins, don't have the same fingerprint. And so it's easy to keep looking back. A few years ago, I was invited to a friend's home. No, I don't want to share yet, please. I don't want to share yet. Can you switch that off? Because I'll share my screen myself when I'm ready. Thank you. A few years ago, I was invited to a friend's home, it was a ladies' tea, and we're talking and chatting as ladies do. And I was sitting with this lady who said to me, "I don't know what to do with myself. I've just retired. I feel like I've come completely unstuck, and I don't know what to do." And I was very, very surprised. This is a lady who is very, very accomplished, highly successful. And she had just retired, I think 2 or 3 weeks before. And it's very easy to feel like that. If you've been in a long, successful career, it's easy to look back and live almost in the past, looking back at your achievements, your accomplishments, and you're stepping off this treadmill. And a few of the speakers before talked about the fact that, you're asked to leave at the age of 60, and in some companies it's 65. But she was really unsure and uncertain, and many people are. Now, there's nothing wrong with looking back, but don't stay there. Don't stay there. It is very, very important to understand that there is a second half of life. And you have had so many years before that, experience, skills, talent that you can bring to bear in the way you want to now. So I'm going to share my screen now. I just wanted to start so that I could talk to everybody. Can everybody see?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
So Albert Einstein says that life is like riding a bicycle. And if you stay stuck in the past and you start to coast, it's like wasting all the years that you've had. Coasting is just not an option. It's okay to take time out, reflect. You've been on a corporate treadmill for many, many years. It's okay to take time out, step back, find your true north, as it were, reflect on who you are, where you want to go, refresh, and then refocus. You know, if a bicycle isn't touched, if you do nothing to a bicycle, it won't move. But if you're pedaling, it will strengthen your muscles. At the same time, if you stop pedaling, it will coast along. And after a while, you'll fall. And people are like that. If we coast, we lose our balance. And you get to a point where you're not sure what you're doing anymore. If you keep coasting, you can lose yourself. You can lose yourself, and your job is not who you are. You are not a job title. So it's very important to move away from that wonderful career, those amazing perks, the fantastic salary, and come back to you. Who are you? What is your life about? When you get to this point in your life, you are actually prepared for the second half because you've had so many years of experience. Everything in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, has prepared you for the next steps. Everything is significant. I mean, I often think of the life of Moses in the Bible. His first 40 years was spent as a prince of Egypt, preparing him to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. The next 40 years were spent in the wilderness, understanding the wilderness years. And then he went back to Egypt, brought out the children from Egypt, and spent the next 40 years in the wilderness. So everything is important. As I approached my 60th birthday, I started to feel a sense of something changing. Life, I certainly felt that life was going to be a little bit different, was going to be different from what it had been. And I came across this quote: "Autumn carries more gold in its pocket than all the other seasons." And I remember thinking, wow, I mean, just look at those colors. Look at the gold, the red, the different shades of gold, the yellow. I thought, more gold in its pockets. And then as we did more research, I found that autumn is actually the time of harvest. It's after you've done all your planting and you can harvest your crops. And I really thought, this is how life is. You've been through a long career, and now it's time for the next steps. It's time to harvest and move on. John Maxwell had this sign on his desk for many years. He talks about why he had it on his desk. He said that he put it there to remind him about the perspectives on the past. Because there are so many of us, we get to that point, many are not even looking forward to it. And by the way, there's nothing like retirement, not in the 21st century. I don't believe in retirement. John Maxwell is in his 70s and he still draws a crowd. And he said he kept that on his desk for many years to remind him of the perspectives that yesterday ended last night, to remind him that every day is new, it's fresh, it's time to do new things, set new goals, achieve new objectives. And as he talked about, the fact that yesterday ended last night, he talked about the fact that you must focus on today, because it is what you do today that affects your tomorrow. The past is all well and good. It's there to give you experience and understanding, and you draw on the skills that you picked up over the years. But now move forward, starting with today. If you don't start with today, you cannot have the success tomorrow. And you may look at it and think, well, what am I going to do? There's so many things that I can do. There's so many things, I'm not sure what I want to do. I've left my hobbies for too long. Can I earn a living from my hobby? And maybe you're at a stage in life where your finances are not in the best state and you do need to earn. He says, start with one thing. Start with one thing. Keep it simple and start with one thing. And I'd like to tell a story. I'd like to tell a story about a young man from Burundi. He is not in his 60s, he is actually in his 40s, but his story was very, very compelling. His name is Gilbert Tuhabonye, and he experienced the genocide. He was at school in 1993 when the genocide in Burundi took place. And they came to his classroom and basically just hacked the children. He watched his classmates being hacked with machetes, and then they put all the bodies in a pile and they set it alight. And this boy, this young man, was at the bottom of the pile. Somehow he survived. He didn't get burnt. He did get burnt, but he didn't die. And he realized that if he didn't get out of under that pile of bodies, he would die. And he could hear the people who had hacked his classmates. He could hear them laughing and talking and drinking. And somehow he pushed his way through the pile and got out and started running. He had always been a sprinter. He was a very, very fast runner. And he started running and they went after him. Long story short, he managed to get away and managed to get home to his parents. And his parents took him to the hospital. They were not sure if he would ever walk again or run again. It was a very difficult time, but he was a very determined young man. He realized that it was running that had saved his life. And over time, he learned to walk again and to start running again. At a certain point in his life, he was offered a scholarship to a university in the United States, and he went to the United States. And as he said, running is what got me to the United States. But his one thing was running. He set up the Gazelle Foundation, which focuses on providing clean water to people in Burundi who have very little clean drinking water. He also set up the training group where he uses his life experiences and his own personal brand of training to coach young people. He's an author, he's a motivational speaker, he's a retired professional athlete. I mean, this is his one thing. And what it is that with that one thing, there are so many branches of what he is doing with that one thing. And so if I go back to John Maxwell, who says, find your one thing and commit to that one thing, you will find yourself being extremely busy and extremely successful. The Bible says, do not neglect your gift. Don't misuse it. Look after it. Look after it. You have a gift. Everybody has a gift. So you need to nurture it, build it up. We're, coming to the end of a very difficult and challenging year. But if, one thing that this year has done is it has allowed many people to step back and look inwards and draw on strengths and draw on things that you didn't know were still there. Everybody has a gift. Now, this is a home in Nairobi. It's a home for the elderly in Nairobi. It's owned by a friend of mine. She started out as an administrator, several years of experience and working in the United States, and then came back home. Her mother was getting on, and like many of us at this stage of life, she had to look after an elderly parent. And it got to a stage where her mother needed care. She brought in a nurse and a carer and started looking after her mother, found a job in Nairobi. But she then noticed that her mother's friends would come and visit, and all in the same stage of life. And suddenly she had this idea. She can set up a home where she can actually care for her mother, her mother's friends, and people who know each other in a community. And she got the space. She upskilled herself. She went and learned a little bit more about taking care of the elderly. She got doctors, nurses, care workers involved, and started with her mother and two of her mother's friends. Today, she's completely full. She has a waiting list, and she's using her administrative skills to run this place. She said to me, "Ibi, I am more fulfilled than I have ever been in my whole life. To see the elderly," she says, seeing them, putting smiles on their faces. She organizes trips and tours. She organizes people to come and speak to them. She's just having fun. And she's providing a service. There's so many things that you can do. I mean, we all know this man, Colonel Sanders, Kentucky Fried Chicken. He started in his late 50s. And there's this lady who is the mayor of Charlotte in the United States. She became mayor at the age of 65. She had worked for 30 years in the civil service and retired at the age of 52, did a few things, and then found that there were problems in the city and decided to go into politics and became the mayor at the age of 65. She is now 68 years old. There's so many other things. There's a gentleman who, at the age of 63, set up an online art gallery with his wife. His wife is an artist. He's a businessman. They put their skills together. At the age of 63, he's doing better than he was when he was in full-time employment. So there is so much that we can do if we look inwards, if we dig deep, if we understand that we have the innate skills and abilities that we need. There are many people who have become much more successful in later years as they have found their passion and the things that they're really drawn to. And as we get older, we can actually capitalize on the experiences that we've had in the past. You don't realize how much you've picked up over the years. In a long career, 25, 30, 35 years, you have picked up so much, and you can put all of it together in whatever it is you want to do. Providing a service, solving a problem, answering your calling. Your job may be your calling. You may be lucky enough to be in a job that is your calling. But for many people, it's just a job that earns a salary. The calling may be completely different. So as you get into this season of life, it's time to look and see where your skills are. What are those gifts that you have? There's another lady who was a banker for 30 years. And then she retired and became a stay-at-home grandmother, looking after her granddaughter because her daughter was away. And she used to sew when she was younger. She loved sewing, and she started sewing again. And she realized she had a business right there. Today, she supplies blankets and travel pillows to the airline industry. I mean, amazing. So many stories. How about the lady who used to love to cook? She was just cooking for her family and everybody left home. And then she started inviting people to her home to cook. Today, she has an amazing business supplying meals to hotels and various places. She's 73 years old. So there is so much, so much. What are the skills you have? What are the hobbies that you can turn into a business? What are those things that you know you can do without trying? What are those things that you know you can do, but maybe you need a little help and you need a little bit of training? You need to work on these things a little bit. I would like us all to take a little time and look at this, because I would like everybody to actually answer these questions. Spend a little time. Maybe you want to do a screenshot. Maybe you want to write these things down. What are the things you dread? What are the things you can't imagine doing? What are the things you do well, but you don't really enjoy? What are the things that you're working on and time just passes? You don't know, you're just in a flow. Spend a little time, you know, this evening, tomorrow, you know, before the weekend runs out. What you will find when you go through this is you will realize the areas that you might want to focus on. Some people already know. Some people already know what they want to do. They have planned it. They've been planning it for years. But some people don't know. And if you don't know, then it's time to take a step back and see where you really fit. Talk to people, talk to friends, brainstorm with people who know you, the things you're good at, the things you enjoy doing, the things that make you happy and fulfilled. And as you do this, this season of life is not the time to go into retreat. This is the time to strengthen your network, to expand your network, make phone calls, you know, reconnect with people you haven't been in touch with for a while, just to find out what they're doing. You just never know, but just keep in touch with people. There's a saying that says your network is your net worth, and it really is. In this season of life, you will be doing yourself a disservice to retreat from society and from what's going on. You may also find that you have to upskill. There are so many programs online. You can go online and register on a program. Many of them are free. You don't need to get a certification, but you can if you want to. If you need to get the certification, obviously you will have to pay. But the thing is, you want to upskill yourself in these areas, and then maybe you can volunteer. You know, you may want to volunteer to test your new skills. And earlier on, somebody talked about social media. It is so powerful. It is so powerful. And so those of us in our 60s who are not very social media savvy, it's time to get trained. It's time to get that learning, because the truth is, I think I heard somebody say at some talk I went to that if you don't get into technology and you don't understand it, in a few years, it will be like you're illiterate. You might as well not have gone to school. That is how it's going to be, literally. In the world of work, it's completely different now. And you need to understand technology and use it if you're going to stay relevant. I've gone through this very quickly. The last thing I want to say is, you know, I'll go back to not looking in the rearview mirror. You need to look forward. You need to look ahead. You need to focus on that one thing. That's where you start from. What is that one thing? Focus on that one thing. Commit to it. And don't be afraid to break out of your comfort zone. You won't know until you try. And by the way, I have learned the most when I have made mistakes, when I have failed at something, because then you know what doesn't work. So don't be afraid to make the mistakes. Don't be afraid to step out there and, you know, go out of your comfort zone. Stop staying in the safe zone. The main message that I want to leave with all of us is that as you go into the second half of your life, it's a new season, but it's a very exciting time. It's a time where you can use everything that you ever learned. And I'd like to end with this quote from T.D. Jakes. It is time for us to find the thing we were created to do, the people we were meant to affect, and the power that comes from alignment with purpose. Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Oh
awesome. That's super amazing. Wow. Double wow, Evia. Thank you so much. You took us to church and back. We could have just asked you to continue and just go on. And your voice was so soothing to listen to. Talk about copious notes. I probably got every single word said down, and the slides and the quotes were just apt and on point. I saw a comment from someone who said, "Oh, you were talking to me right now." So inspiring, brilliant presentation, and just what we needed to hear. I can't think of a better end to this evening's session. Amazing. It's been brilliant, totally amazing from beginning till now. I mean, Nimi, I was just going to say we must do this again. There was so much packed into today, honestly, and for everyone been on this session, I'm sure it's been definitely been time well spent. I mean, people go for conferences and seminars and pay hundreds of dollars and hundreds of naira, and they don't get the quality that we received in the last couple of hours today. And yes, people agree with me, Nimi, yes, we must do this again. So
it would actually be nice to have some of the same people back, to see how we're all doing, to hold each other accountable, because this has just been absolutely amazing. And we have to thank Leadway, United Capital. It's just incredible what you've done in Chapel Hill, Denham, because of them we could do everything free of charge. So I'm just overwhelmed. I'm just amazed. I'm amazed. And as you said, the way EBI has ended it is just the best way possible for us to step out there and look at it. I'm just so pleased.
Thank you, Nimi. You had this brilliant idea. You put it all together. So we say a huge thank you to you. A huge thank you to all our fantastic facilitators. I mentioned it at the beginning, knowledgeable in their field, subject matter experts, but they've blown our minds and beyond wowed us today. It's been quite insightful. It's been very educative. I'm leaving a far better person. I thought I was a finance specialist, personal finance expert, but everything I know, quite a lot of it has been turned on its head today because I've learned so much. Felicia says surprising. She sat through everything from the beginning till now. She couldn't move an inch because the content was just fantastic, and it was just what she needed. Thank you so much to everyone who has waited with us patiently until now. I guess the last charge for us will be to remind you that you're diamonds and that you're meant to shine, remain durable and resilient, to go out there and take your world. And like Ebia so fittingly said at the end, this is for those who are 60 and above, this diamonds, it's really just the best season of your life. Yes, it's autumn, but those beautiful colors are there for you to go and just reflect and shine.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you again, Nimi. You did this. I'd like everyone to please give an applause for Nimi for doing such a...
Let me just thank the speakers individually. Pamela, thank you so much. There's so much that we've taken away from this, and you can look forward to hearing from some of us, because I have no idea. What was the something marker she spoke about? We never heard of it.
Markers. Health markers.
Go for the markers. Then, yes, absolutely. Chapel Hill Denham, thank you. Those some very interesting insights about the stock market and mutual funds and so on. Getting on board, I want about that is just extraordinary. Thank you. So those insights. And really, if you, I hope we're sharing all the slides. We're going to share all the slides. So you need to go through Awanaba's presentation, because the tips that she gave about getting on board were just so succinct and self-improving. If you go through some of the detail in terms of how to prepare yourself, I think that's so important. Tola Adigbai, brilliant. Insurance. I mean, I see insurance in a completely, utterly different way. I just never knew about the ways you could use it. You know, we just think of insurance as something that you can avoid for most people, and they don't do anything about it. Meanwhile, it's probably the most fundamental part of your financial plan, because that is what is protecting your assets, including your life. Estate planning, wonderful. And for such a young lady who was daunted about talking to the elders, as they call us, I thought that was just great. And yes, you know, it's such an important thing. And if there's just one thing everyone does before the end of this year, make sure it's one of these things. Your insurance policy, make sure they're in place, or your estate plan. Let's start with a basic will as a tool. And then the EBI, absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So thank you all.